bees have human face recognition. They can recognise humans and come back and say hello to you again.
Rubbish.
They do. The reason beekeepers wear veils is because they want to disguise themselves from the bee.
If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. It's just the two mics flicking through tomorrow's papers.
What are you doing in my shrubbery, you dirty little...
Nocturnal stirrings from the night garden of sporting news with Mike Ninky Nonk Graham and Mike Pinky Ponk Parry on Talk Sport. If you're up with a baby, you'll get it.
Look at the light!
So, did you see that story about the sharks invading Sussex, by the way?
No, what's that?
You haven't seen it? It's on the front page of the Mirror. There was like 50 sharks invaded West Sussex.
Were they on land or what?
Well, no, they were not on land. What do you think? They're going to, like, wander out of the sea? This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
Well, a very good morning to you, Mike, but I have to say, why have you opened the show with a piece of utter drivel?
Drivel? What do you mean drivel?
Drivel about Peter Crouch.
Well, we heard what you said about Peter Crouch in the sports bar,
well,
right?
maybe the people who've just tuned in didn't.
Yes, well, maybe they didn't. So what you've said, of course, is that you don't think it's an achievement at all for him to have scored 100 goals in the Premier League.
No, I've not said that.
Largely because you think he played for too many seasons.
No.
And for too many different clubs.
No, I haven't said that. You put words in my mouth. What I said is, at the end of this game against Everton tonight, it's all, Crouchy, 100 goals, what an achievement and all that.
Well,
I then hear some of our colleagues, in this same business, eulogising earlier on about, fantastic.
Well, surely it is fantastic.
And 100 goals, it's taken him 15 seasons. He's played 15
but
seasons.
He still
for Premier
scored
League.
100 goals.
That is an average of 6.5 goals a season.
Doesn't matter.
In his best season for Southampton, he played 27 times and he scored 12 goals. That's good. That's a goal every other game, okay?
Yes.
However, in another season, when he was, for instance, playing for Spurs, he scored 4 goals in 34 games.
Well, he probably didn't. He didn't play in as many games then, did he?
In the 2015-16 season, he scored no goals.
Yeah.
Similarly, in the 2002-2003 season, when he played 14 times, he scored no goals. I mean, I'm saying
does
is...
Does that mean that he didn't play in that position, perhaps? Does it mean that he didn't
No.
that he didn't have an opportunity to play in every game?
No, it means that whilst he's got 100 goals, that's quite commendable over 15 years.
Commendable?
Yeah, over 50. A striker who plays for 15 years should get at least 100 goals.
Well, forget for a moment he played 15 years. There's not that many players who've scored 100 goals in the Premier League, are there?
Alan Shearer scored 200 goals in half the amount of seasons in the Premier League. That's why he'll always remain as the leading scorer in the Premier League. I don't think anybody will ever beat him.
It's a bit like you with your 130 your heart works. I mean, he mentions it pretty much every time he's on Match of the Day, doesn't he?
Who?
Alan Shearer.
Well, it's something to be proud of. And I mean, look, by the way, please, I'm not having to go at Peter Crouch.
Aren't you?
Peter Crouch is a very successful man who's had a very successful career. He's a multimillionaire. He's got a beautiful wife. He's got a great family. He's an absolutely smashing chap. I've met him at dinners and football events and that kind of stuff. And I don't know anybody who's got a bad word to say about him. All's I'm saying is that because Peter Crouch is a nice guy, a nice man,
yes,
everybody's queuing up now to say, Crouchy,
But I think the fact, as we said earlier,
goals for Crouchy.
But hang on, surely the fact that he's actually played in the Premier League for 15 years is worthy of an achievement award in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. To have a career of longevity of 15 years in the Premier League, without a shadow of a doubt, is an achievement, and I salute him for that. But I just think it's ridiculous for people to start hailing him as, one of the great goal scorers of the Premier League era.
Do you want to know in what exalted company he now resides?
Yeah, go on, tell me.
Let me give you some names. Alan Shearer, Wayne Rooney, Andy Cole.
No, he doesn't.
Frank Lampard.
No, they all scored over 200 goals in the Premier League.
Henry. These are people who've scored over 100 goals.
Thierry Henry scored about 167 goals for Arsenal alone.
People who've scored over 100 goals. Thierry Henry, Robbie Fowler, Jermaine Defoe, Michael Owen, Les Ferdinand.
They all scored over 200.
Teddy Sheringham.
That's a ridiculous
Robin
comparison.
Van Persie, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, Robbie Keane, Nicholas Anelka, Dwight York, Steven Gerrard, Ian Wright, who only scored 113, so you might not think he made much of an achievement either. Sergio Aguero, Dion Dublin, Emile Heskey, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Darren Bent.
It's a rubbish list,
Didier Drogba, and Matt Letizia.
It's a rubbish list.
I think all of those players, right, there's 25 players who have scored more than 100 goals.
Lampard.
Can you consider how many players have played in the Premier League, how many strikers? That's pretty good.
Frank Lampard was a midfield player.
Yeah.
Peter Crouch was a striker. He was a target
Frank
man.
Lampard took a lot of free kicks.
Frank Lampard scored 200 goals from midfield.
Well, they count penalties, don't they?
Of course.
He was the Chelsea penalty taker.
Peter Crouch has scored 100 goals as a striker in 15 seasons. Yeah. Frank Lampard scored twice as many goals from midfield in less number of seasons.
I don't understand why you would want to have a go at him for it.
I'm not having a go at him.
Why can't you just be happy for him?
I am very happy for him.
I suspect, as I said earlier...
He's a great guy.
I suspect, as I said earlier, that it's all a Jose Mourinho-style smokescreen, so that you don't have to talk about Everton's rather poor performance.
Facts, they speak for themselves.
You know, Jose Mourinho goes on about the fourth official in order not to talk about how he only managed to get a 0-0 draw with Hull. You're talking about Peter Crouch, so that you don't have to talk about only getting a 1-1 draw with Stoke.
I think a 1-1 draw at Stoke on a very rainy...
Everton didn't even score.
On a very rainy and wet Wednesday evening. You know, it's a colloquialism. Sorry, it's a repeatism in football, isn't it?
Repeatism.
Yes, a wet, windy night in Stoke in January or February.
A rainy night in Georgia.
Rainy night in Georgia.
I'll tell you what, it's going to be a rainy night and windy night here. I could feel the wind.
Big storm coming, I think.
The wind is picking up. It's Hurricane Doris.
Hurricane Doris.
Or actually, Storm Doris.
It's going to be a right old Doris, isn't it?
I mean, who came up with these names?
I don't know.
You know who who did? The public voted for them.
Public voted. Well, you start with A, don't you? And then we've got to D now. But it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but they're all stupid names.
Yeah, of course they are.
Doris. How do we call a storm Doris?
I don't know. It originated in America anyway. Listen, I think we should. Listen. I think we should ask our audience for their views on Peter Crouch, because you are trying to call black white. I am merely stating the facts. I am merely stating the facts.
You are being, as ever, you're sort of pouring cold water on somebody's achievement.
I am not. I'm stating the facts.
You should be happy for the guy. You should be.
I'm very happy.
You should be willing to congratulate him.
I like Peter Crouch a lot.
You should be willing to congratulate him. You should not be saying,
successful man.
You know, this is a guy who's taken 15 years to score 100 goals in some kind of mealy-mouthed kind of.
Well, it's not mealy-mouthed. I'm stating the facts.
Anyway, dissing the guy.
Anyway, excuse me, folks out there, millions of listeners around the world. 08717 223344. We say that nice. We say that nice and clearly, so you can actually hear it, so you can call us. 08717 223344. Give us a shout, please.
Alex says this. More nonsense from Porky. Is it just because he played for Liverpool? Well, that may have something to do with it.
Nothing to do with it whatsoever. Nothing to do whatsoever. You know, I've always hailed Steven Gerrard as one of the great stars of the Premier League era. He played for Liverpool, so I don't have any prejudices that way.
That's good to hear. Peter says, Rob says this. At least with Porky going on about Peter Crouch, he's not talking about the panicular structure again.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of debate about the panicular structure over the last 48 hours.
That wasn't an invitation for you to mention it again, by the way.
I spoke to one of our young producers in this very building, actually, just outside on the programming floor, only about 10 minutes ago. Do you know, for the last 36 hours, he's been searching for the panicular in the panicular structure picture.
Is that right?
And he's only just found it.
Really?
So I think he must be cross-eyed or colour-blind
or something like that. Too long and you can not see it.
Well, you can, yeah, you can. But no wonder his career is stalled if he can't even see a phallus symbol.
By the way, do you remember when you told me...
in a painting when it's obviously there?
You know when you told me there was a word in the dictionary called panicular?
Yes.
There isn't.
Of course
there is a panicular, P-A-N-N-I-C-U-L-A-R.
Yes.
Which has nothing to do with any sort of structure.
Well...
it is a layer of tissue.
Yes.
Especially a subcutaneous layer of fat.
Yes.
So,
and the relevance of that is?
Well, I asked you yesterday if there was such a word as panicular.
Well, I'm sorry.
You assured me that there was, and it turns out there isn't.
Well, if there isn't, there should be. It's not the first word I've invented, have I, to help people...
It certainly isn't the first word you've invented.
To help people more understand the English language, you know, that's all I can tell you, OK?
There's one from Wizard who says, Crouch, it's a bit like comparing Rooney's England record to Jimmy Greaves or Gary Lineker's.
No, it's not.
Crouch scored 1 in 2 for England.
No, it's not. It's in the same era. Look, I'm not comparing him with Dixie Dean.
Well, you might as well compare Wayne Rooney.
Dixie Dean scored more than 1 goal a game.
What about Wayne Rooney and Bobby Charlton's record? I mean, you know, it's difficult to compare those two really like for like, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's actually quite simple.
I don't think so.
It's quite simple. Number of games, number of goals scored from penalties, free kicks and all that. That is quite simple. But anyway, look, I am not for 1 minute attacking Peter Crouch. In fact, I'm taking my hat off to him to have the longevity he's got. And by the way, he said he wants to play another 5 years, and I believe he probably will. He has such a unique physical presence, and each manager he's played for has used that to a varying degree to either be a target man, to hold up play, to play with his back to goal, to actually support the number 10 or the players around him. He's done a brilliant job.
Yes.
But
you're going to pour cold water on it.
No,
and you're going to burst his balloon.
No, it's daft for so-called football experts, you know, football editors and all this kind of stuff.
Is this who you're really having a go at?
No, to start going on, you know.
Why are you having a go at somebody who says that he's got a fantastic record because of the way they speak?
I'm not for a moment.
Really?
Why would I say that? Why would I do that?
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
No,
trying to work out why you're attacking Peter Crouch. Since you say you've got nothing against Peter Crouch, you must have something against the person who thinks he's done well.
No, not at all.
Keep your hands off my papers, by the way.
No, I'm
you
not.
got your own set of papers.
No, they're just about to fall off the table, that was all.
Oh, are they?
I was trying to help you there.
Thank you very much. It's very unusual.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, I don't want to go on about this all night. The point is
nobody else does either.
Excuse me? What?
Nobody else wants you to go on about it.
I mean, the other thing is as well.
Yeah, as well.
For instance, he's played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
8.
7.
I can tell you it's 8.
Hang on, it's 9.
No, it's 8.
No,
He's played for a couple of people twice.
No, it's 9 because of a loan spell.
A loan spell where?
Norwich.
No, I counted Norwich.
No, I'll count the clubs for you, okay? Right, QPR is 1.
Yeah.
Portsmouth 2.
Yeah.
Villa 3.
Yeah.
Norwich 4.
Yeah.
Southampton 5.
Yeah.
Liverpool 6.
Yeah.
Spurs 7.
Yeah.
Stoke 8.
Yeah.
Portsmouth 9.
Portsmouth twice.
It's still 2 clubs that he's been to.
No, it's one club that he's been to twice, so it's 8.
Yes, but he's played
for 8 clubs.
No, he's played 9 times for a club on a contract.
He's played.
It just so happens Portsmouth has to be.
You said he's played for 9 clubs. He hasn't. He's played for 8.
He's had 9 spells at.
That's not
clubs.
the same situation.
Okay.
He's played for 8 clubs. Will you accept that?
He's had 9 spells at clubs.
Would you accept that he's played for 8 clubs?
He played for Portsmouth in
twice.
2008, 2009,
yes.
And he played at the start of his career in the top flight 2001, 2002.
Right.
9 altogether.
So are you accepting that he only played for 8 clubs?
4, 5, 6, 7,
it's not difficult, this. He's played for 8 clubs.
He's played 9...
Why can't you just accept it?
He's played under 9 different contracts for 8 clubs.
He's played for 8 clubs.
9 times.
9
times.
Thank you. How about this from Woodenhead?
Yes.
Harry is jealous that Crouch is taller, richer, and has a model girlfriend. We know he hates anyone who's more successful than him.
No, that's not true
Actually,
at all.
he normally likes people who are more successful than him, as long as they're not in the same business.
No. I like people who have aspirations. He's had a very successful life, and all I'm doing is trying to sort of correct both in English diction and through facts and figures and common sense, the euphoria that seems to be surrounding.
Well, there's a lot of people who want to talk
to
you about this, and we're going to talk to them very shortly. The
exactly.
number of calls 08717 22 3344. Tim says, lay off Crouchy. He only started a handful of games the last 4 seasons.
I'm not laying into Crouchy.
Yeah, you are. This
I
is
am
Talk
not.
Sport.
I'm not. Definitely not.
The Two Mikes, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
It's a wonderful night, you gotta take it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, you gotta shake it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, everybody can see. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes, and of course it's Porkyvision coming up a little bit later on. Tommy Smith is coming up in a little while. We're going to take some of your calls. We're having 1 or 2 technical issues at the moment.
We certainly are.
I love Crouchy. He's a proper pro, says Leon.
Yes.
And here's one from earlier where he said Porky's at it again, starting trouble, talking about manky people wearing cords and Crouchy having a poor record in the Premier League. Yeah. Absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, well, look, all I'm doing is stating the facts. I mean, I can't say it often enough. You know, tremendous respect for Peter Crouch. Fantastic career over 15 years. Longevity of it is astonishing. But
you said he hasn't scored many goals.
Well, he hasn't. It's as simple as that. You know, it's ridiculous to call him one of the legendary scorers for... Anyway, look, why don't we talk to some of the listeners who want to get in on the act?
Somebody wants to actually make a bit of sense.
There's a Stoke fan.
We're not quite ready for it
Not quite ready for on the technical basis.
Yeah.
They're all very interesting people. Anyway, we'll come round to them in a minute. But, I mean, you know, I think it's also a bit unfair of you to just suddenly have a dig there at Alan Shearer and say every time he's on Match of the Day, he points out that he's the leading goal scorer in the Premier League. No, he doesn't.
He does quite a lot.
He doesn't, honestly. I think that is...
I would say on at least 50% of the time that I watch Match of the Day, which is pretty much every Saturday that it's on, he mentions the fact that he still has the goal-scoring record.
Well, I've never heard him say that, to be honest. Never heard him say that. Linda sends us a message. She says, stop having a go at our Crouchy. Just because you don't want to talk about Everton's lack of chances tonight, Crouchy is a great guy.
Exactly
I agree
right.
with you. I think Crouchy
is
a great guy.
You have to admit the goal was dubious, to say the least. I mean, you know, Lukaku was offside. The fact that he didn't touch the ball is of no consequence. And the fact that, you know, Everton didn't manage to score a goal, I think should be worrying for you.
Sorry, what was the result again?
Hey?
What was the result?
What do you mean, what was the result?
Sorry, what was the result of Everton's game tonight?
It was 1-1.
Oh, there we go. So Everton scored a goal.
No, they didn't.
Thank you.
It was an own goal.
No, I'm sorry.
Everton
the record
didn't
show
score.
It was 1-1.
Everton didn't score.
Own goals count.
They do. But my statement is correct in which I said Everton did not score.
No.
Did they?
No, Everton did score.
No, they didn't.
They did.
They recorded a goal which was scored by a member of the Stoke team.
Let's
talk to Jamie, who's a Stoke fan.
Indeed.
Jamie, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yeah, hi, Jamie.
What would you like to say, Jamie? Surely you must
say that you are probably right that Crouch has played for 9 contracts.
Yes.
But only for 8 clubs.
8 clubs,
right,
yes. Yes, well, I think we've established that.
You can't really take it away from him. He's actually got the 100 mark. He's not really, I'm a Stoke fan, but the thing is, I used to watch him when I was in the Navy playing for Portsmouth.
Right.
And at that time, 2001, 2002, he looked like he was going to be a superstar. Mm-hmm. But look at him now. He's not really came to the fore like, say, Michael Owen or Robbie Fowler.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's been more like a journeyman like Christian Brocky at AC Milan. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean. You're absolutely right, Jamie. Look, I'm not knocking the guy's longevity. I'm not knocking his contribution to the Premier League. But
you are quite right, Mike.
Yeah.
Both the Mikes, you're quite right in saying that, really, in some seasons, he's not really turned up.
No, it's 3 or 4 goals in some seasons.
But in some seasons he hasn't really had that many games either.
And he's games for England when, in all honesty, they say his England ratio is quite good.
Yeah.
That's quite poor as well, really.
Yeah. Well, 1 in 2, isn't it? 1 in 2 of his appearances for England.
Oh, he's done well for England, but that's because he was played as an out-and-out striker and target man and did a job.
Well, there you are. That's why. Because when he plays for England as an out-and-out target man, Jamie, he scores 1 in 2 every second game. When he's not played as an out-and-out target man, he doesn't score so many. What do you think of that? Let him answer it.
Yeah, sure.
Jamie.
You are probably right in that, because sometimes he's got to play deep and it doesn't really suit him. You know?
Yeah, but I've never questioned what he's been doing. All I'm saying is people getting euphoric about the fact he scored 100 Premier League goals in 15 seasons is silly because it's not a huge return.
Yeah, I've got a good one here.
He brings more for the team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He brings balls down for other people.
Exactly right.
He does.
Well, that's what Jason Cundy said, that he made an awful lot of goals for Jermaine Defoe, and Jermaine Defoe is also in the list of players, of 25 players who scored more than 100 goals.
Just before Jamie goes, Jamie, you're from Lerwick in the Shetlands, yeah?
Yeah.
You're all a bunch of nutters up there, aren't you? Because you go around...
Why only go to Shetlands?
Well, no, I'm not. But don't you have this great ceremony where you celebrate your Viking antecedents and go around burning boats and all that kind of stuff?
Did you not see that last night on the internet, no?
No, it was last night, was it? And I thought I'd seen something about it today. Yeah, did you join in?
Yeah, I was in one of the squads. Yeah.
You were brilliant. Well done. I love that. I love the ancient history.
So you were on a Viking longboat?
No, I was carrying one of the torches.
Oh, right. Were you? That's brilliant. Fantastic. Well done. I'm going to come there.
And then you set fire to the boat, right? Push it out to sea.
Yeah.
In the middle of the park. Yeah.
That is brilliant. I'm going to come up there one year, Jamie. I hope you're still there, mate. If you are, I'll give you a call.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Jamie,
thank you very much indeed.
Jamie, do you think you could keep him up there when you get him as well?
That's nice, isn't it? Eh?
Yeah. All right.
Don't let him go. Just lock him up in one of the old-fashioned town, sort of drunk tanks or something.
Bit harsh.
Now, what about this from Robbie, who asked me this question, but I'm not sure I can answer it. He says, "How many Everton players are in the 100 goal list, please, MG?" Do you know?
Well, I can tell you that Gary Lineker scored 40 goals for Everton in one season.
In the Premier League.
That still stands as a record.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the Premier League.
Gary Lineker wasn't around when the Premier League was around.
So
okay?
I don't think there is an Everton player in there, is all I'm saying.
Well, why have you asked me a stupid question like that? What relevance does that have to Peter Crouch?
Robbie is well, because here's another one from Dazza. He says if Crouch had scored 100 goals for Everton, even for a portion of his career, Porky would be crowing about it.
But Peter Crouch hasn't scored 100 goals for Stoke.
No, but he scored 100 goals in his career.
Or QPR.
No.
Or any of the other teams.
He scored 100 goals in his career. I don't know why you're so upset about the fact
I'm
that
not upset.
This guy has achieved something wonderful.
I'm not upset.
He's one of 25 players
to
have scored more than 100 goals in the Premier League.
Good for him. How many players have scored over 200 goals in the Premier League?
Alan Shearer is definitely one.
Yes.
I'm not sure there is anyone else, is there?
No, I think he's the only one.
Yeah.
Now, all the other players you mentioned scored between 100 and 200 goals. They weren't marking the record of 100 Premier League goals.
Well, yeah, but Matt Letizia is in that list, and he scored 100 goals.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you want me to tell you exactly how many goals all the people in that list scored...
Matt Letizia was a midfield player
I will be happy to tell you. Yeah, but Matt Le Tissier, again, like Frank Lampard, took an awful lot of free kicks, right?
Well, he was very good at taking free kicks.
And that's
the
what
point.
You've got to say.
Crouch didn't take any free kicks.
Wayne Rooney is on 195.
One of his specialities.
Right, Wayne Rooney's on 195.
Yeah.
Andy Cole, 187. Frank Lampard, 177. Thierry Henry, 175.
Yes.
Robbie Fowler, 163.
Well, there you go, you see.
Jermaine Defoe, 155.
There you go.
Well, so it keeps going on. I mean, it goes all the way down. Robin Van Persie, 144. Robbie Keane, 126. Dwight York, 123. Steven Gerrard.
All right, thank you. Yeah,
120.
Nice list. You've got a list in front of you. Well done.
Well, I've got the list
Excellent.
because sometimes this show needs a few facts thrown into
No, but you're
the
hitting
mix.
it from the wrong direction, you see. I'm not having a go at Peter Crouch. I'm not knocking players who don't score 200. I'm merely stating the facts. And the evidence is that actually scoring 100 goals in the Premier League is very commendable, but it ain't record-breaking.
Here's one from
it ain't terribly special among professional
Stoddard
footballers.
says only 6 Everton players in their entire history have scored more league goals than Crouch. So that's
How many what, sorry?
Only 6 Everton players in their entire history have scored more league goals than Crouch.
Yeah, one of them's Dixie Dean, of course, who's the all-time record
and
goal
one of them's
scorer.
presumably Gary Lineker.
There
Let's
ever
talk
will
to
be.
Jamie, who's an Arsenal fan. Hello, Jamie.
Hello.
Hi, Jamie. Okay.
What do you think about this this disgraceful attack on Peter Crouch?
Yeah, I think he's had a better career than what people are saying. I mean, he's been at a few clubs, but every club that he's been at, he's always scored goals, and he's always gone where he's had to get first team football because of the size that he is. Like, people, all the managers, they want to play all this tick-attacker football, but Crouch is a big target man, so obviously he's in it. I think in his career he's been a victim of his size because people don't think he can play, but he can play. But obviously the goals that he scored, I mean, he's been about a bit. But
One of the terrible cliches. Yeah, one of the terrible cliches always made about Peter Crouch, Jamie, is that for a big man, he's very useful with his feet. You know what I mean? But it happens to be true because he has scored a lot of goals with his feet. And
remember that fantastic goal he scored from the outside
Liverpool.
Right of the penalty area?
Yeah, for Liverpool, he threw himself in the air, and it was a sort of scissor kick volley, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He has scored spectacular goals. The only thing I'm saying is, Jamie,
Wasn't that for Stoke, that one?
No, it was for Liverpool.
You sure?
And for
maybe we're thinking of two different.
Well, he certainly scored one for Liverpool. That was a scissor kick in midair. But no, Jamie, all I'm saying is I'm not knocking it for a moment. Peter Crouch is a great guy, and he's a multi-millionaire. He's done fantastic things in his life, had a very successful life. But when you get so-called football experts coming on, 100 goal, brilliant, all that.
Well, it is brilliant.
It's not that brilliant.
Well, I'm sorry.
It is brilliant, though, because obviously the type of player Crouch is. He never thought. I bet he probably didn't think he was going to get that type of goals because the type of actual player he is. Like people like Suarez, Rooney, and people like that, and Thierry Henry. They can get the ball, they can run, they can do it.
Yep.
But Crouch has to rely on his teammates. So because obviously he's had to go where he's had to go and get first team football.
Yeah.
It's the same with the national team. He's been a victim of the national team. Crouch, he's got a great international record.
He has.
He has. And if we had better managers instead of Capello and Roy Hodgson,
I bet you'd like him. I bet you'd like him at Arsenal, Jamie, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you like him at Arsenal?
He's had a better career than what people think. He's had a better career than Michael Owen. He's had a better career than Emil Heskey.
Oh, he hasn't. He hasn't had a better career than Michael Owen.
Well, he's had a longer career than Michael Owen.
But,
might be longer, but
Michael Owen's a legend. But obviously, Crouch, when he retires, people are going to be. That's when people will realise how good a player Crouch was. Because there's not going to be. I don't think there's going to be another player like Peter Crouch for years and years because of people like because I mean the size that he is.
Yes.
They don't come around that often. So if you look around the world, I think there's only. Crouch is like the second or third tallest.
I mean, would you have liked him to have played for Arsenal?
I just asked him that, but he wasn't listening to me.
I know.
Crouch is great. I think he's amazing. He's better than what people think. I think
do you want him at Arsenal, Jamie?
Pardon?
Do you want him at Arsenal?
No, well, I wouldn't now because obviously his age that he is, but I would have if he, back in the day when he was at Portsmouth with Defoe, he was amazing.
Yes.
He was just exactly. When he was at Liverpool, he was amazing.
He's had some very good spells. He's had some very good spells. He's an impact player. He sometimes has a burst of 4 or 5 games where he scores goals and he does the job and he gets teams out of trouble. I'm not knocking anything he's ever done.
You're completely dismissing
I'm just
his
challenging
achievement.
the nonsensical statement that he's a legend because he scored 100 goals. Lots of people have done that.
He is. Lots of people haven't done it. Only 25 people, I've told you, have scored.
25 is a lot of people.
It's not a lot of people in the number of years the Premier League has been around. That's more years that the Premier League has been around than there are people who've scored 100 goals.
How many people have scored 60 goals in one season?
60 goals in one season? What, in any part of football history?
Yes.
I would say Probably no more than about 5 or 6.
No, in England.
Oh, in England?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, in England, probably 1 or 2.
No, 1.
1.
Dixie Dean.
Dixie Dean.
By the way,
that was so long ago that it doesn't matter.
It's funny you should say 1 or 2 because you know the statistic everybody forgets.
Yeah.
In the season when Dixie Dean did it, 60.
Yeah.
The previous season, George Campsell of Middlesbrough had scored 59.
Is that right?
It's not amazing.
Well,
and Dixie had to score 4 in his last game, and he did.
Well, it tells you that was a slightly different time. I don't think you can really compare it. But, of course, Messi has scored that many goals, and so has Ronaldo, and in a much more difficult time, I would say.
Oh, yeah, but they're in the Spanish league, where for most of the season they're playing against half-backs.
Not true. I mean, Real Madrid are leading the league at the moment. Barcelona are struggling, so it's incorrect to say that.
No, but most of the teams they only play 2 or 3 decent teams. The rest are all sort of basically, sort of league division 3.
Guillaume Balaguer would beg to differ, and so would Graham Hunter. This is Talk Sport. Talk Sport, we are the 2 mics. It's Porkyvision coming up a little bit later on. How about this one from Steve? He says, I don't want to talk about Crouch. I want to know why Porky completely dismissed my video of Coco picking MG a winner in Heroes and Villains. Do you remember last week?
Yes, I do. Yes,
Coco, the brown
lab. That's right.
Managed to pick you as the winner.
This week
he picked me.
He picked you.
She.
Yeah.
Is it she?
It's a she. It's a she. She picked you. Yes.
Yeah. Why haven't you mentioned that?
Well, I haven't mentioned it. I haven't mentioned it because it'll happen every week now, and she'll either pick one or the other. But I mean, clearly the owner. What's the name of the guy again? Steve. Thank you very much for your correspondence.
Yeah.
You clearly directed your dog to balance it up so as you could, keep the tension going, which is not a bad thing. But you balanced it up to pick MG this week, as I was leading from the first week. So on that basis, I have to dismiss you as a manipulator. That's
what will he be doing next week so that we can just get it straight before the pick is made?
Well, next week we'll see.
What do you mean? So if he picks me again next week, you'll accuse him of gerrymandering?
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
I don't want to, be presumptuous.
Cristiano and several others have basically pointed out that, and indeed you were wrong about Peter Crouch, because the amazing goal you were talking about was at Stoke against Manchester City, the best goal of his career.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, but I can tell you in Liverpool's
the best goal of his career, which is the one that we all remember, was the one he scored for Stoke. From the outside right of the penalty area, it was an incredible volley right into the top left-hand corner.
It was an incredible volley.
That's the goal everybody's talking about.
Well, the goal that most people remember when I talked about Peter Crouch is the scissor kick, mid-air scissor kick when he was in a Liverpool shirt.
Okay, well, we'll see if somebody can remember that.
As well.
Now,
they all remember that. There's one here, by the way. There's a daft note here. Tell Porky there was no offside when Dixie scored 60 goals.
Correct.
And you could barge keepers into the net back then, says John.
That's true, isn't it?
Who apparently is an Everton fan, EFC.
Well, that's true.
But hang on, John. That opportunity was open to everybody. Everybody could take advantage of no offside rule. Everybody could barge keepers in the back of the net. But the people didn't have the skill and the talent of Dixie Dean. Do you know Dixie Dean invented heading, don't you?
No.
He did.
I didn't know
He
that.
did.
Are you sure?
He invented heading. I've got one of the few interviews that was ever recorded with Dixie Dean.
Have you?
And he says...
Who did he do it with?
He did it with, I don't know, a local radio station, I think.
A local radio station?
Yeah, but it was in the 60s, right? In the 60s.
You should bring it in. We'd like to listen to it.
I can, actually, if you like, and we can play a bit of it. And
is it really long and boring?
No, it's utterly fascinating. One of the points he said, this young lad come along like Tommy Lawton. And, Tommy, he was all right. He was a bit of I taught him the heading trick.
The heading trick.
And he said, what's that? The heading trick. I taught him the heading trick. People didn't used to head the ball in Dixie Dean's days.
Pretty soon they might be not heading it anymore anyway.
No, that's true.
They'll be doing away with heading.
That's a good point.
How would football be if there was no heading, by the way?
Well, funny enough, I heard Tony Cascarino actually talking about it the other day.
Well.
And Tony said, and then I thought, he might be right, in 50 years' time, they won't allow heading.
No.
So, but the only thing Tony did say is he said, in no other sport is the head involved.
Yeah.
But it is in boxing.
Well, it is in boxing, and you might say it also is in rugby union.
Yes.
But I mean, I suppose what he meant was that you don't actually use your head to do anything to the ball.
But boxers do. Boxers do use their head,
don't they? They don't have a ball, do they?
No, they don't have a ball, but they use their head as an aggressive weapon, don't they, boxers?
Well, I suppose
to open up their opponent's eyebrows.
But I mean,
it's
illegal but it's illegal for them to do so.
It is illegal.
So they don't do it as a matter of course. So he's right about that.
It's not in the rules, I suppose. Yeah.
Stoddard says this: Is Dixie Dean the new John Lennon? By which I think he means you're going to just keep mentioning him on and on and on.
No, I think he means he sounded more. My impersonation of Dixie Dean sounded more like John Lennon.
David says, Porky, tonight you've proved once and for all you know nothing about football.
Oh, really?
Go Crouchy.
Oh, really?
And then he says you'll never walk alone. He's a Liverpool fan.
Okay, so just because I stated the facts. The other thing Dixie Dean said, Bo, is so fascinating.
Are you going to keep going on about Dixie Dean?
Well, you asked her. You brought it up.
Not.
You brought
I did not bring it up.
Well, one of our correspondents
You told me that he scored 60 goals in one season.
That's right.
So he never stopped talking about it.
Everybody knows about that.
By coincidence, he scored for Everton.
He scored over 360 in his career. But no, the one other thing, and then we'll get off the subject, right?
Yes.
He was asked about, his relationship with the manager. And Dixie said, no, we didn't have a manager. And he said, well, sorry, who picked the team? He says, me. He said, we got into the dressing room and we got there and we said, right, lads, what they do, we'll just play it the same way.
Yeah.
Come on, we'll go and beat them. There was no manager.
So Everton didn't have a manager?
There was no manager. You had a club chairman and a club secretary. There was no manager.
Really?
And the secretary was...
That'd save a few bob, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, yeah. And the secretary was the guy who, told you get it's £4 for a loss, £5 for a draw, and £6 for a victory. And that's your lot.
Tremendous.
And in the summer, you get half pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's better than nothing, I suppose.
Exactly.
Kai says this, if Crouch played for Everton, Porky would have labelled him as one of the greatest strikers to grace the Premier League.
Well, no, he wouldn't,
Hashtag
would I?
blank.
Because
Well, of course you would.
it's fact and figures.
Now, let's talk to Lyle, who's a Liverpool fan,
Yes.
down in Dorset. Hello, Lyle.
Yeah. All right, Mike, how are you? I'm actually in Miami.
Miami?
You're in Miami. Says here you're in Dorchester.
A little bit west of Dorchester.
Certainly is, yeah.
Okay.
But nothing like as picturesque.
How are you guys this evening?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Indeed.
No, not at all.
What would you like to tell us?
I did, in fact, want to back... Well, Porkmeister, I wanted to back you up.
Thank you.
You're talking about Peter Crouch's fantastic scissors volley against Galatasaray when Liverpool were in the Champions League. So
exactly.
That was the stunner that you were, I think, mentioning, and probably it got a little confused there, but that was the one. It was a stunning goal.
Wasn't as good as the one he scored for Stoke, though, was it?
No, you're right, Mike. You are right. But I mean,
Crouch's goal of his career
was... guy is 6'7".
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Could you just let Daniel finish, please? Please go on.
Daniel?
Sorry, Lyle.
His name's Lyle.
Lyle, please go on.
He's away with the fairies tonight, Lyle.
Not at all.
Yeah, every night. But you guys do amuse me every night. I'm listening in Miami, and I listen right through to the end of the show every night, and you crack me up. I do have your DVD as well.
Excellent.
One more note I was going to say, in the 2007 Champions League final, the game was screaming for Crouch to come on, and that's the time when Benitez, in fact, being the tactician he was, you would have expected him to bring him on, and he didn't.
Yes.
We lost that one to Milan.
Yes.
And if you remember, Dirk Kuyt was up front, and all the Italian centre-backs were like 5'10", and that's
was this in Greece?
That he would have made a big impact in. But
was that the one in Athens?
That's right. That's correct.
I was there. I was at the game.
Yeah, Bookmaster. Oh, you were?
I was, yeah. I was at the game, yeah.
Well, he should have come on that night, but I think he did have a fantastic career, and when you look back over a great career, I mean, I definitely think he's up there with some of the better Premier League strikers.
No, I totally agree with you. I totally agree.
Well, I mean, you can't get away from the fact that only 25 players, as I say, Porky doesn't like me saying this because it's a fact, only 25 players have scored 100 goals or more. That's not very many people.
But, Lyle, if I said you scored 100 goals over 15 seasons, that averages 6.5 goals a season, that is a different fact altogether. That's not particularly outstanding.
No, that's true, but he was rarely a starter. He was almost more of an impact player, wasn't he? I mean, at Liverpool, he didn't start that many games. At Stoke, he's hardly started. But, in fact, month of January, I would have had him at Liverpool, where we could have had some sort of a different option. This month, we could have done with his height and something different up front, I think. So,
yes.
A good player, anyway.
I think so, too.
Okay,
well, listen, thank you very much
indeed
for calling all the way from Miami, a great part of the world. Here's another little last statistic for you, because I mean, people want to talk about Crouch. We don't want to talk about him for the whole show. This is from Leon. He says, loads of those players above 100 goals were penalty takers. And he lists them, and I think this is important. Defoe, Henry, Gerrard, Fowler, York, Shearer and Lampard. All penalty takers. And
Rooney, actually.
And Rooney as well. So you'd have to say that an awful lot of those goals, I mean, I don't know what the number is, were probably penalties.
Well, I'm not desperately trying to prove my point that Peter Crouch is not a great player. I think he is. But I just think that it's hysteria to say, oh, what a fantastic achievement. Who goes?
I disagree.
Who goes 15 seasons? That's not fantastic.
Well, I think we should be celebrating the fact that an English player is up there in the ranks of the greats who have played in the Premier League.
Yes.
The fact that he's managed to stay at the very top level of the Premier League for 15 years, I think is remarkable in itself. Because what I'll ask you to do now, and I'll give you some time to do it, is tell me who else has played in the Premier League for 15 years, who's been an England player, player who has had such a great career internationally, and I bet you the list will be very, very short indeed.
He was only briefly an England player.
This is TalkSport.
Yes.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics. We've got loads of tweets coming in. You can tweet us, of course, at the Two Mics, at Mike Parry 8, at IROMG. You can text us as well on 8 to 1089. Paul says, as I remember, Peter Crouch once scored the perfect hat-trick for Liverpool. Left foot, right foot and a header.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is another thing that very, very few players have done.
Yes.
And incidentally, it's 42 England caps he had. So when you say he only played sort of briefly for England, that's quite a lot of caps.
How many caps?
42.
That's a very good record, that. Terrific.
All right.
Most of them are substitutes, aren't they?
It doesn't matter. He's got 42 caps.
Yeah, no, I'm not knocking that.
Now, where's your list of players that have played in the Premier League and have been successful for 15 years?
Sorry?
Well, I asked you just before we went to the break.
Yeah.
I want you to have a list of players who've played for 15 years in the Premier League.
I'm not going to suddenly
magic
Crouch up a list of things that you want just because you want to prove a point.
Well, you haven't got any, have you? There aren't any.
There might be or there might not be. The point is...
Well, you've had time. What have you been doing for 10 minutes?
Sorry?
What have you been doing for 10 minutes?
For 10 minutes, mate, I have been making sure the rest of this show will go smoothly.
Really?
Because I feel that you're a little erratic tonight. And you're
think
also,
I'm erratic?
I think you're shaken to your core.
Really?
And rocked on
you really are the most deluded man I've ever met.
And rocked on your suspension.
Why?
That,
why am I rocked?
I have managed to, so defenestrate you in the first 3/4 hour of the show.
Well, I don't think you've had anybody who's called in who's actually agreed with you.
Hey, listen, I've just seen something, actually, which has suddenly bolted Johnny Depp into the aura of superstar.
Well, I think he was a superstar for quite a long time before you spotted him.
He's an even bigger superstar now. Do you know he spends $30,000 a month on wine?
Does he? Top man.
Yeah,
I wonder if he keeps any of it or just drinks it all. Let's speak to Tommy Smith, who is, of course, a man on the other side of the pond who keeps an eye on close Premier League scenarios. From 3 very odd results last night, you might say. Tommy, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mike and Mike. How's it going?
Yeah,
very well indeed, Tommy.
Very well indeed. Porky has been on this bizarre mission for the last 45 minutes to try and... he's done a bit of a Jose Mourinho on us, really. He's been going on about why Peter Crouch's 100 goals is not worthy of celebration, which I think is really only to deflect from the fact that Everton couldn't beat Stoke and couldn't score a goal against them.
Yeah, well, that's what, Everton really have blown hot and cold. I mean, there are people suggesting that Everton are going to get in the top 4. I'd say I have a bigger chance of getting in the top 4 as Everton have.
Yeah, well, look, they might not get in the top 4 this season, Tommy. The point is that I wasn't having to go at Peter Crouch. I just said that 100 goals in 15 seasons at the average of 6.5 a season isn't necessarily a blinding record. But that's irrelevant to what happened tonight. Everton now look to me as though they found their mojo. They look to me as though they could certainly pick up points in the forthcoming games, bearing in mind they've got Bournemouth, they've got Middlesbrough, they've got West Ham coming up not too far away. And I think Mr. Koeman, with the benefit of his first real transfer window, is starting to shape the team in his own image.
Well, when you make that statement, it's fine. But you probably would have made the statement, and I would have made the statement the night before last, that Arsenal will pick up 3 points in the game against Watford, and Manchester United will pick up 3 points in the game against Hull.
Yes.
So the Premier League is very, very unpredictable this year. I don't think you can even take a chance at predicting anything except that Chelsea are the best team that did it.
And you'd pretty much be a fool, would you not, to say that Chelsea can let it all slip from this point on. I mean, they're so far ahead of everybody else, and it's all the teams behind them that seem to be the most unpredictable.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what Spurs had a great opportunity last night, and they go ahead and they blow it, basically. Okay, they got a draw. They didn't lose any ground. But the big thing to keep in mind is they have one less game to make up now in Chelsea because there's one more game played. Manchester United was the same tonight. Hey, they had an opportunity of really closing the gap up on Liverpool, who are starting to fall apart. And all this Jurgen Klopp magic has gone out the window. He dropped his magic wand somewhere when he was celebrating with the fans or something like that, because the magic is definitely gone. United again, well, Mourinho just couldn't get the job done. So, these teams themselves are letting it slip. Chelsea are just going ahead. I mean, they haven't lost in 16. You can't beat that, can you?
No, you can't. And I'll tell you what, Tommy, Chelsea are doing this season what Arsenal should have done last season. Whilst all the other teams around them were falling apart, when they couldn't get their mojo together, when they couldn't become organised, Leicester City went and filled the vacuum. Arsenal should have filled that vacuum last season. Chelsea are doing exactly that this season.
Yeah, they've stepped in, and he's not doing anything spectacular. I mean, if he goes out and wins 1-0, it's fine. If he goes out and wins 2-0, it's fine. But the main thing is that he's getting 3 points in the win column every time he goes out. And Kante, to me, is the best midfielder in the Premier League at the moment. I mean, it's unbelievable. Watching him last night against Liverpool, I just couldn't believe how good he was.
His energy as well. Yeah. I mean, he's everywhere on that pitch, isn't he? And everywhere he goes, he does something really magical with his feet.
Yeah, it's like watching an 8-year-old game. When you watch an 8-year-old game, the 8-year-old loses the ball, he goes after it, he doesn't get it still, he goes after it again. I seen Kante last night. He went through 3 different tackles, and eventually he won the ball.
Yes, that's absolutely
And what about
right.
this new boy who's the star of all the back pages this morning, Jesus, in Manchester City's 4-0 win over West Ham? More of a slaughter, really. I mean, this guy's going to be, it looks like, the new Sergio Aguero.
Yeah, it certainly looks like that. But, if we're going to go by religion, I think Man City have 2 Jesuses on it now, one way or another. So how could you beat them? I mean, this man, okay, he comes with a big reputation. But, guys, we have seen so many big reputations from young players, and after 5 or 6 games, it just doesn't work out. I think we're far too quick to rush to judgment of what's good and of what's bad, basically.
Yes, yeah, but he nevertheless, he does look outstanding for the time being. You have to say, Tom, I understand what you're saying. You build them up and you knock them down, but there you are.
Well, it's often as well because in their first season, people don't know how to play against them, and in the second season, they get used to it. Right?
They do. Now, Tommy, what about the West Ham situation? Because are West Ham a club in crisis now? I mean, they got beaten tonight by a team that had already beaten them 5-0 about 3 weeks ago. You'd have thought they must have had more of a measure of the team that ripped them apart in the Cup, 5-0.
Yeah, you would have thought it, but I mean, the fact that I think that this Payet thing, this situation developed at West Ham shows that there's a deeper problem. And okay, they took in Snodgrass to basically try to replace him. He's not a replacement. West Ham have a lot of problems, and I think you're going to see them develop more problems. They have to be a team in crisis at the moment. I mean, this is a big club. Hammers are a big club, but they're not looking like a big club right now.
Yes, no, that's absolutely right.
They're certainly not. And looking at the bottom part of the division, Tommy, what about Marco Silva at Hull? Because he's done some good things since he's been there, and he was another guy who came in. People said we don't really know anything about this guy.
The Swansea guy?
Well, Paul Clement's starting to make some things happen as well. It's all very fascinating down there. But Silva, I don't know if you knew much about him before he came to the Premier League, but I would say, despite the slings and arrows, he's doing all right, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's doing all right too. And I mean, we have seen a few surprises. I mean, you talk about the way Swansea, you just mentioned the Swansea manager as well. I mean, Swansea have done very well. I mean, Bob Bradley must be at this stage, if he has any hair left, he must be putting it out as to what he did wrong, because he certainly didn't get the results. And Swansea now I think Swansea have made Bob Bradley look bad.
I think they have, yeah. I think it was the players that made him look bad, because I said at the time, I don't understand why they got rid of him, because anybody new coming in can't do much more with the players. But it looks like Paul Clement's starting to make that happen.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he's got the players. For whatever reason, they didn't play well for Bob Bradley. And okay, they have brought in a few players. I mean, they brought in 2 or 3 players in this window, but they certainly didn't look like they bought in enough that they were going to make such a drastic change as they've made. And they certainly have made huge strides.
Absolutely right.
They certainly have.
Now, looking at Chelsea and Arsenal, the top 4 and everything else, there's a story in the back page of the Times this morning in which it says Arsene Wenger has responded to Arsenal's home defeat to Watford by giving his players 2 days off from training.
I know, isn't that weird?
Which I suppose, if you're an Arsenal player, you might. I mean, it's light training they're going to do rather than the normal stuff. But it's a strange response, isn't it, ahead of the Chelsea game?
Yeah, Arsene Wenger has had a lot of very strange responses over the last 2 years or something. And I've the greatest respect in the world for the man. But I've asked this question, I've asked it several times. If Arsenal had to have a different manager for the last 3 years, would they have won a championship? I just have to come to the conclusion that I think they probably would have with the teams they've had.
Yeah, I mean, particularly as they're playing Chelsea in the next game on Saturday, it seems a very odd... I'd have thought that you'd put them in for double training to try and get some rhythm back into the team rather than let them go. But what do we know about it? Arsene Wenger's been there 20 years. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, isn't that a crazy situation? I mean, why is he not going anywhere soon?
Well, because we've had the argument, gone round in circles on it, Tommy. He is so powerful at Arsenal. The only person who can sack Arsene Wenger is Arsene Wenger. And I'm afraid that's the situation. Until he's convinced in his own head that he can't do anything more, he's there. He's there for life, really.
Well, he's there until he chooses to not be,
exactly,
really, isn't he? Yeah.
Exactly.
What about Jose Mourinho, Tommy? I mean, he was happy for a brief period. He was grumpy at the start of the season. Seems to be getting grumpier again.
Yeah, I agree.
He's now sort of getting all paranoid, saying that everyone's got it in for him. The fourth officials don't treat him consistently in the same manner. What do you make of all that?
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I mean, Jose Mourinho has always been the same Jose Mourinho, When things are going right, he will clap himself on the back and say, oh, yeah, I'm doing a fantastic job. I'm the special one. When things are going wrong, the officials are doing this, the guys are not doing that, the players are not playing the way I told them. He has a million excuses, but he is only one man to praise, himself. But he has a million excuses for when things go bad. And, I've said many, many times, I never saw Jose Mourinho as a Manchester United manager, and I'll stand by that statement still. I don't see him as a Manchester United manager.
Well, maybe the club will have to change in his image, not the other way around. Just finally, Tommy, what do you think of this scramble for Celtic's Moussa Dembele? Because the lad's only ever played at Fulham and Celtic. OK, so he's a bit of a revelation up there. But people telling the world they're going to pay 40 or 50 million quid for him, he's unproven in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's got to that point, but guys, hasn't it? You and me and the other Mike there is probably worth 40 million if we went to go on the market. I mean, that's the way how crazy this game has come.
Yes.
I mean, there's absolutely no way in the world. All due respects to Celtic, all due respects to the man involved.
Yeah.
50 million quid. Are you kidding me or something?
Yeah.
Look if you want to talk about money squandered, look at Pogba. 90 million quid, wasn't it?
Well, he started getting good and then he sort of went off the boil again, didn't he? So I think this is going to be a lost season for him.
If you pay that kind of money for a player, he should be on the boil all the time.
Well, I totally agree with you.
Exactly right. Well, listen, Tommy, take care of yourself. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, Tommy.
Reporting into us from the other side of the pond. How about this from Andy? It says, so Dixie Dean invented heading, did he? No doubt like Newton inventing gravity when we were all floating around randomly.
Well, Newton did discover gravity.
Well, yeah, but he didn't invent it.
Nobody discovered it.
Yeah, but so I think that's the point he's making.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that Dixie Dean discovered heading rather than invented it?
Well, yes, I think
he invented it in a footballing capacity.
I think what Andy's saying...
Very few goals were scored by players' heads before Dixie Dean. Seriously.
But what I'm saying is Andy probably... What I think Andy's saying is that he revolutionised the ability of players to head the ball rather than actually inventing it.
Yes, I might be able to concede that point,
And then he points out that there's 42 caps and 22 goals for England, which I think.
I think his England record's outstanding. One goal in every 2 games. Yeah. That's a terrific record, and some will say that on that record, perhaps he should have played more.
Yeah, Wayne says nice to see that out of the 25 players to score 100+ Premier League goals, 17 of them are English.
Yes.
And Neil, who's a baggy, says I think you should get the George Cross MG having to put up with Motormouth every night.
Oh, really?
Which is quite a nice thing to say.
Yes. Is that a nice thing to say? What's this guy's name again?
Neil.
And he's a West Brom fan?
He would be if he's a baggy, I would think.
Yeah, they don't have much to shout about, do they, West Brom fans?
West Brom are doing rather well this season with Tony Pulis at the helm.
Oh, yeah, and their track record of, incredible victories and conquests over the years is long.
Would you like to know...
You need a list as long as the Eiffel Tower, wouldn't you, to put it up there?
Would you like to know where they are in reference to where your club is currently in the Premier League?
I think they're one place below, aren't they?
Exactly. So yes. I don't think you should be quite as dismissive as you are being.
I'm not. They stole the FA Cup over in 1968.
Is that why you haven't actually given them any credit for anything?
No, I give them credit. I give them credit.
He also says, before you start slagging him off, work is a great place to be at this time of the morning when the 2 mics are on.
Thank you.
Bloody marvellous.
Thank you.
So you've now just insulted him.
No, I have not indeed. I like West Bromwich fans, particularly if they have a box they invite me into. And
what happened to those guys? They've invited you back, haven't they?
Yes, they have, yeah.
No, they've not invited you back. They had you there once.
No, not at all.
Now, coming up in the next hour, we're going to talk about bees, because they're mysteriously disappearing. Somebody's rustling bees.
They're stealing all the bees.
In California. They're being stolen. It's a shocking state of affairs. And, of course, Porkyvision as well.
Yes.
This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 mics. Coming up in this hour, I might tell you an interesting story as well about how Liverpool has invented its own currency. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no, actually. I heard somebody mention that earlier. It's quite intriguing.
It is intriguing. What it is, it's a digital currency,
currency.
And the idea is basically that you buy credits on your credit card.
I see.
And you go and spend the money in sort of local community-type shops.
Yes.
And then the money that is generated remains in that community. And then you get, like, discounts, for example, to use particular shops as long as you use the currency.
I see. So it's a bit like bartering, really.
It's a little bit like bartering, but except it's got a real value.
Yeah, and what I'd say to you is, hasn't that been going on for some time in the City of London?
It's been going on in a few places, funnily enough.
What's it called, the coinage they use in the City of London? Is it Britpoint or something?
Oh, you're talking about bitcoins.
Bitcoins,
no,
that's
bitcoins,
right, yeah.
No, bitcoins are something which are used around the world.
Oh, yeah?
And they are something which is quite complicated and which, I have to be honest, I don't particularly understand.
Right.
But it's a similar idea. It's a sort of universal currency. But the idea of this particular Liverpool currency is basically that it boosts local businesses, right? So rather than you going to your local supermarket, say for example, with one of the big names, you go to your local butchers.
I see.
And your local butcher will say, "Oh, well, if you're going to buy something with this particular currency,
that's very interesting.
Then we might give you a bit of a break on the sausages that you're buying, and you might be able to then and they can follow where the money's going. If you know what I mean.
Sounds very good.
So it keeps the money in the local community.
Yeah. Okay. Very
I
good.
think it's a good idea.
A very good idea indeed.
Yeah.
Shall I tell you what shocked me today, and I was a bit sad about?
What was that?
The death of Sir Ken Morrison.
Oh, Sir Ken Morrison. I saw somebody tweeting about that earlier.
Yeah, and I thought...
I'm not sure I've ever heard of him, to be honest. Is he the Morrison's Morrison?
Yes, he is. Now, of course, I am a boy from the North.
You are indeed, even though you've abandoned the North.
I did spend 18 months working in the Manchester office of the Daily Express.
By the way, somebody mentioned as well on Twitter that Dixie Dean used to own a pub in Chester, is that right?
It's called the Dublin Packet, and it's on the Town Hall Square.
Still there?
Yes, it is. Well, it was still there the last time I went there. And how about this? When I was about 8, my dad took me there, right?
Yeah.
And got special permission to take me into the pub to meet Dixie.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, so was he behind the bar?
Well, he wasn't actually behind the bar, but his name was above the door. He was the proprietor of the pub, right?
Right.
And you won't believe it, but Dixie won... I think it was 18 England caps. I know it doesn't sound much for the man who's the record England goal scorer.
It doesn't sound much for the man who invented heading.
Well, it doesn't. But remember, there was the Second World War and all that kind of stuff, and England they didn't play many games in those days. There was no there were home internationals.
They weren't friendlies, right?
Well, there were no friendlies, and there were no qualifiers for World Cups or anything like that.
Right.
It didn't exist. You know what I mean?
Well, you mean the World Cup existed before then?
No, in the 20s. The World Cup started in 1930.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant when he was playing, later.
No. Most of his career was played in the 20s and early 30s. And the first World Cup in 1930 didn't even include, England. You see what I mean?
Right.
So there were no qualifiers or anything like that. And anyway, the international teams were invited to the World Cup and started there. There were no qualifiers. Anyway, the point of my story is...
Yeah, what is the point of your story?
That... around the bar, there are all these sort of raggedy bits of material hanging from nails above the bar.
Yes.
They were Dixie Dean's international caps.
Oh, were they?
And they'd been there for years, and they were moth-eaten, and they're falling to bits.
And how many were there?
Well, he got 18 altogether, and I would say there were probably 6 or 7, but they were literally just hanging on nails. And it was quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was it. And he only had the pub a couple of years, and then he moved back to the Wirral, where he came from. But anyway, look, Ken Morrison, right?
Yeah.
The man who transformed Morrison's from a small chain of grocers to a supermarket giant has died aged 65 following a short illness. I mean, he was a terrific guy.
Yeah.
Because he literally did take his father's corner shop and turn it into an international chain. It was quite amazing.
And how did he manage to do that?
Well, what he did is he built it up in the north, right? Yeah. And then it became a powerhouse in the north of England.
Maybe that's why I've got a sort of general lack of affinity to Morrison.
I would think so.
It's just my least favourite supermarket chain.
Yeah, okay. Well,
I don't know why that is.
Well, one reason is that the bags are so unattractive. They're yellow and black, and they don't have the suave sort of artistic flow of a Safeway logo.
It's also because
I've been...
Safeways was also one that I was never keen on.
Well, the point is, this is the point. Where his career stalled was when he went for the biggest deal of his life and tried to merge Morrison's, which was a northern chain, with Safeway, which is a southern chain.
And did that not work?
Well, it took years and years and years
because
for it to
Safeways have disappeared now, haven't they?
Well, they were merged into Morrison's.
That's what I mean.
That's the whole point.
Oh, okay.
And what I'm saying is...
Well, I'm glad to say that Morrison's have kept up the low standard of Safeways, so whenever you go into one, it looks just like it used to look when it was Safeway.
Well, I think that's a bit harsh. I use Morrison's quite a lot.
That doesn't surprise me.
They've invented things like the Market Street, where they have barrows with fruit on them and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but that's rubbish, isn't it?
Meat counters and all that kind of stuff.
unless the fruit is any good, there's not much point. I went into one in Hastings, and I must admit, I looked at their sort of deli counter and was very underwhelmed.
Well, here, this is a quote from him, right, to attach to what you've just said.
Yeah.
He once said, Southern shoppers like to think they're more sophisticated than Northern shoppers, but they're not. They say poor people need a bargain. Well, wealthy people should appreciate one. And that
well, why is he making everyone in the south is wealthy? Because they're not.
Well, they are compared to a lot of people in the north.
That's rubbish. You see, that's the kind of prejudice that permeates all the way through society. Well, people in the north pretend that we're terribly poor up here, and look at all you posh southerners down there who are all wealthy.
Well, all property,
and you look down on us.
All property in southern England is, mostly speaking, more expensive than property in northern England.
But that's not a gauge of how wealthy or not people are.
It's a gauge of lifestyle and standard of living.
But if you're going to tell me you can't find poor people living in London, then you'd be wrong.
Yeah, but the poor people living in London are not as poor as poor people living in the north of England.
I don't agree.
They're not.
No, absolute rubbish. They've got cheaper cost of living up in the north of England, so they can actually live on less money.
Yeah, but it's all about, I think, expectation, all that.
Listen, I think everyone should be treated the same.
Yeah, so do I.
I don't believe that there should be prejudice which is perpetuated by people like this Morrison guy who sounds like a right maniac.
Well, I mean, that's a bit harsh. He's only died 24 hours ago, so I wish you'd show a bit more respect for the deceased.
Oh, right, because you show lots of respect for the deceased.
Yes, I do.
When you're talking about John Hurt, you said, well, everybody's got to go sometime.
Well,
when you talked about Alexander Chancellor, you said, isn't it amazing that he died just a day after I read his column?
Well, it certainly was.
You know.
Anyway, let me just tell you a bit more about this guy.
Yeah, right. Then.
He was so good at making sure there was no waste that he used to root through the bins at the end of the day to make sure they hadn't thrown out any food that could have been sold the following day, OK? And he would tear open sandwiches.
And then he put it back in the shop, presumably.
He would tear open sandwiches to check the freshness of the product inside.
Right.
So Ken joined Morrison's formally after National Service in 1952. He started off as a shopkeeper and 4 years later was chairman and managing director. It was under him that the firm set up in 1899.
Yeah.
It was under him, the firm, which was set up in 1899, opened its first supermarket in 1961 in
Chester.
Bradford,
Marvellous.
Yeah, in 1967 he led the company onto the stock market. Morrison's then joined the FTSE 100 index. How about that? That's incredible.
It's a great
for
story.
A chain of supermarkets in
I just don't like the shop.
And then it says, 3 years later, he hit trouble with an ill-fated takeover of Safeway, but again turned things round and retired with record profits and was made life president. His family, whose fortune is now thought to be £1.6 billion, said there'll be a private funeral with a public occasion.
Yeah.
I mean, that is amazing. That is amazing.
Well, I mean, he's certainly achieved an awful lot in his life, and I'm very happy, and my condolences to his family as well.
Yes.
And I don't have anything against the guy, but I just don't think Morrison's is the flagship. And if you were being one of the great British exporters and said, what are the flagship exports for this country, I wouldn't say Morrison's was one.
Okay.
Sorry to say. It's only my opinion.
That's right.
Now, I've got a couple of tweets here about this local pound business, right? Because EBJ has told me that they've got it in Brixton, which is true. They've got a Brixton pound. It's going to be called the LLP, the Liverpool pound.
Okay.
And in Bristol,
is this all registered on computers then, is it?
Yeah, well, it's a bit like topping up your phone card, if you like. I think you get a card, right?
Yes.
So there's no actual money changing hands.
When you say get a card, are you talking about like when we go into a pub and if you have 6 pints, you get a free 7th pint and they mark it on your card?
No. When you go into a pub, if you're starting a tab, they'll give you a card, won't they? Sometimes?
Oh, yes, I see, yes.
No, it's not like that
I
at all.
understand, yes.
No,
but the card goes into a computer and registers how much you've got.
It's a bit like for example, my kids have got a card that they take to school nowadays. If they want to buy school dinner, right, they swipe the card.
Yes,
and then you can top the card up on the computer at home.
I see.
It's a bit like that, right?
Yeah, I see.
So when
it sounds like a good idea.
Gareth says this in Bristol, we have the Bristol pound, which is used in local shops. It's been around for a while, but it's still a novelty. And apparently, the Liverpool local pound was launched barely a month ago. Yeah. It's got 3,000 users, right? And there is a transaction using the currency every 5 to 10 minutes.
That's fantastic.
I think it's quite interesting.
I've had a great idea from this.
Have you?
I get these great ideas. Very soon we're going to be able to announce the launch of our new website, aren't we? I'm delighted to say. Sorry about the fact it's taking so long. We had a few technical problems along the way, but we've got it coming. It's going to be brilliant.
They've built a couple of new pyramids in Egypt in the meantime.
They have. But what I was going to say is, wouldn't it be perfect if on that we gave people access to the Porky pound?
The Porky pound?
What about the Porky pound?
Well, where could you spend it?
Well, I mean, we can work that out later, but I mean, wouldn't that be a fantastic currency?
It would, yeah.
The Porky pound.
It's only worth 85 pence, presumably.
No, the Porky pound. I mean, you could buy all sorts of things. Fish fingers, you know?
Well, it might not be a bad idea. Write that one down.
Yeah, exactly.
In order to make this work, you have to have a smartphone, and you have an app which is called Kolu. Colu.
Yeah.
And basically, it's like a digital wallet.
Sounds brilliant.
Is effectively what it is.
Sounds brilliant.
And so I think we should keep track of this and see whether it's good. Some people say it's discriminatory against old people because, of course, a lot of them will not have a smartphone and will not know how to top it up.
Well, that's life. Life passes you by sometimes when you get to a certain age.
Yeah,
I know about this,
and that's why you like people to be respectful to the dead, isn't it?
Excuse me.
That's life.
Listen, guess what's coming up next?
What?
Guess what's coming up next?
What's coming up next?
I've read a new book on Steven Spielberg.
Have you?
And we've got an expert in the studio to talk about it.
Really? What's it called?
Steven Spielberg. Studio, John. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed
John
for
Hearn
joining us. John Hearn, yeah.
Not John Hurt, no. He's dead.
No, he's dead.
John Hearn.
John Hearn, indeed. I think that's the first film that brought to our attention the genius producer and filmmaker Steven Spielberg, wasn't it? And the reason I'm talking to you, John, is because I've just read a new book that was sent to me. It's called Steven Spielberg, A Life in Films.
Yes, well, that was the film that was his big breakthrough. He'd done a lot of TV before that, and he made a couple of TV movies. His first film was called Duel, which was an excellent film about a battle between a truck driver and a car driver.
What was it called?
Called Duel.
Duel, that's right. Yeah, I've seen that.
Movie.
You only ever saw the boots of the lorry driver, didn't you?
It was, very, very clever. And it
remember
was
that
very
one, Mike?
Yeah, I think I have seen that.
Yeah.
It sort of, really marked him as a very different director because he would film because there was very little story in that film. So he just shot everything from as many different angles as possible. So there were a lot of close-ups of wheels and like you say, boots and things like that. And that sort of stood him out as being a very different kind of director.
Right.
But it was Jaws that was his huge breakthrough film because it was a relatively low budget movie.
$8 million, it says in the book, and it returned $268 million.
Exactly. It was the first. Really, you could say it was the first kind of big blockbuster film.
Yeah.
And it effectively, that and films like E.T. helped to change cinema.
Well, it says in the book, and you will obviously have known this before I read it here, that from Jaws onwards, then, all the studios were under pressure to come up with the summer blockbuster and the autumn and spring blockbusters.
It was a combination of Spielberg's success with that and the appalling failure of a film called Heaven's Gate.
Oh, right.
Which was a film by Michael Cimino. He was the guy who
that was the guy who did The Deer Hunter,
He did The Deer Hunter, and he just won an Oscar for The Deer Hunter, which was an amazing film. Yeah. And at that time, in the 60s and 70s, after the studio system collapsed, directors had a lot of freedom and could do very, very introspective, very sort of epic kind of movies. But Michael Cimino, having won an Oscar for The Deer Hunter, went crazy with Heaven's Gate. Became a huge egomaniac and egocentric on it, and it was an absolute disaster. It was really long. It was dull. It just cost an absolute fortune.
What was it about?
It was about the Johnson County Wars in Montana.
Oh, right, okay.
But it was just such a huge flop.
Right. It was mega over budget as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and it nearly crippled the studio. And at that point, the studio bosses thought, well, we can't really afford for this to keep happening. Because there are other big disasters like Raise the Titanic as well. Yeah. And so they needed to almost, you can't guarantee you're ever going to get your money back, but they wanted to play a little bit safer and didn't want to trust films to these kind of maverick directors again. So that coupled with this idea of making a populist film that lots of people want to go and see, the two events together is what created the blockbuster.
That leads me on to the next question. Why has he always been an outsider? Is it because artistic sort of reproduction of events was the very last criteria for a Spielberg film? It was all about having fun and, seeing people getting chased by big boulders and all that kind of stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, Spielberg made cinema for the entertainment.
Right.
He grew up watching, going to the cinema and watching the old weekly serials, the short films that you see every week that make you go back to the cinema. Yeah. And he learnt his trade through TV rather than going to film school. So he never really studied the art of cinema in that sense, or the very elitist kind of view of the critical view of cinema.
Yes.
He was just in it for the entertainment. But
that was why it was such a great success. I mean,
absolutely.
Those early films were a joy to watch, weren't
But he didn't get the Oscars for them, did he?
Not his early stuff.
Well, they kept ignoring him, didn't they?
That's what I'm saying, because they didn't think it was very artistic.
But then he made some more serious films later.
It was Schindler's List that eventually... He won an honorary Oscar in the late 70s, but he got his first Oscar, his only Oscar as director for Schindler's List.
Right.
And I think his acceptance speech, he said something like, this feels like the biggest drink after the longest drought, or something. It was kind of a little dig at The fact that he'd been overlooked so many times. Since then, he's been nominated as a producer more than a director many, many times for Best Pictures. Never won another one. Well, he's won. Saving Private Ryan won Best Picture.
Right. Okay.
But no, sorry for that. He won for director. He won that.
That's
Best Picture for Schindler's List.
Yeah, that's right. Best Picture. It says here people keep thinking he won Best Picture for Private Ryan, but he didn't. What about him as a man, John? Because there's a chapter in the book which says that he could never grow up, and that's why he produced great films which appealed to, sort of younger people. But he even corrupted the plot of Hook, which is about Peter Pan, to make Peter Pan a person who was actually quite badly disturbed rather than the innocent character he'd been portrayed before.
That made it a much more interesting version of the story, didn't it, in a way?
Well, I actually think Hook is not a bad film. I don't know why it's been so denigrated. I think, Bob Hoskins was brilliant as Smee.
It was quite dark as well.
It was a dark version of Peter Pan. And why not? There have been a lot of versions of Peter Pan. They still keep turning out every few years.
You don't have to be Tim Burton and make everybody wear white makeup to make it a bit odd, do you?
Why not do something a bit different? And I think Hook is a fantastic film. And but he does have this he approaches his work from a childlike way.
Yes.
And so he, a lot of the times he makes films for a younger audience.
Almost like a sort of Michael Jackson approach to life.
A little bit, yeah. He's kind of this is a man who.
Well, I meant like in terms of Neverland and all that. You know what I mean? I don't want to grow up.
He's a man who's in love with cinema.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of directors who love the art of cinema and the craft of cinema. This is a man who just loves movies.
And stories as well.
Exactly.
All his movies. Jaws is a great story.
It's a brilliant story.
Raiders of the Lost Ark are all great stories.
Oh, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
You laugh along with it because it's a bit corny, but it's brilliant. You can't stop watching it.
Yeah,
that's right.
And films like Jurassic Park are interesting. Well, that was an adaptation of a book, but still, he likes to make interesting stories and very thrilling as well.
Yeah.
He combines great storytelling with great action. It doesn't always work. He's had his failures, but most of the time, and he has a fantastic list of brilliant films. But he's about telling entertaining stories and entertaining people.
I get the sense as well from reading about this woman, Molly Haskell, who's written the book, that she's a little bit waspish about him. She's kind of old school Hollywood, born in 1939, used to be a critic for the Village Voice in New Yorker.
Well, she used to hate Spielberg.
Yeah,
but
it comes through in some of the things she said about him, where she's kind of bit denigrating about The Colour Purple, saying he only made that because he really wanted to try and get an Oscar, and she talks about him trying to confront his Jewishness during Schindler's List. She's obviously still not a fan, really.
Well, The Colour Purple was technically an Oscars failure because it nominated for something like 11 or 12 Oscars and didn't win any.
Really?
And it was a big. I remember it was a big thing at the time that the fact that had been nominated and didn't win anything, and there was a bit of a shock, and there was this, whether it was prejudice against him, whether it was prejudice because it was a black film essentially, or it's good that somebody who's written a book about his life and films is not just fawning all over him and saying he's brilliant, because he's not infallible. And there are people who don't like Spielberg, and there are people who don't like his films because he goes for that very kind of childlike wonder.
I'm sure I'm right in saying occasionally when you see an episode of an old American thing like Columbo or something, you see directed by Steven Spielberg. Yeah, did he go back into sort of making...
No, he started out
doing that. That's where he started.
Oh, did he?
That's why, he came from television, which is partly why I think Hollywood sort of thought of him as a bit more populist.
Absolutely.
He's kind of the tabloid film director.
Yeah, very much.
Shunned by his broadsheet mates.
Well, that's funny. There was an episode of Columbo, and the plot was all about a young whiz-kid film producer, on a set in Hollywood, and his mate turned up from his college days to reveal that it was his mate who had all the big ideas, and he was going to reveal this to the papers. So the whiz-kid producer had him electrocuted on the set by, quotes, accident, you know what I mean? And Columbo had to discover the murder and all that.
I got a feeling that that figured in one of the Porky quizzes about Columbo.
Did it?
There was a question about which famous Hollywood director.
That's right, Steven Spielberg. I think you're right. I think you're right.
Now, what's he doing now? Is he still making movies as much as he was?
Well, he's over 70 now.
There's a statistic, is there not, about how much money he was actually making at one time?
Oh, it was when E.T. was at its peak, it was making something like $1 million a day.
Yeah.
In I think it was 82.
Not bad.
Because it was released. It was one of the first films to be released almost simultaneously globally. And now it happens all the time because of digital cinema. But back in those days when you had to have physical prints of films, to have it released in more than one country was,
you had to fly these
expense.
cans all over the world,
it was a big expense.
Yes, right,
but it was done because they capitalised on it. And they were making something like $1 million a day.
Yeah, that's not bad, is it?
And he obviously made an absolute fortune personally from it because he wrote it, he produced it, he directed it.
Is he making films like as we speak, or is he producing more, or what?
There will be another Indiana Jones film.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of the fourth one, but the first three are brilliant.
Yeah.
Whether this fifth one will be any good or not, I don't know, but I hope it is. Yeah. He did Bridge of Spies. He was Oscar nominated for Bridge of Spies a couple of years ago.
And is his classic company still there in Hollywood? What was it called?
Amblin Entertainment is his.
Oh, is it? I thought it was. I thought it had a much more populous name.
Are you thinking of Pixar?
Yeah, something like that. Didn't he have one of those companies?
No,
I think it was just that Amblin.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
Or are you thinking of George Lucas?
Yeah, probably George Lucas. Yeah, probably.
He was another whiz kid, but
he was.
We'll talk about him. I guess
Indeed,
when a book comes out about him.
Exactly, or when he dies.
Or when he dies. That'll be a great Porky.
We always talk about people when they die.
John, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Sorry, you haven't got a story about Steven Spielberg to tell us because you had a couple of great stories the last time you were on.
I don't know, but I do know somebody who actually got hold of his phone number, just phoned him up at home, and just had a chat with him. And he was apparently it was like 8 o'clock in the morning LA time. And he just picked the phone up, and I just had a chat with this person he'd never, didn't know, and was apparently very, very nice on the phone, and said, listen, if you ever want to call back, give me a call.
Try that with you, Porky.
No, I never answer the phone to strangers.
I'll give you a number out.
If I don't recognise the number on the phone, it doesn't get answered. Simple as that. It's a bum.
Yeah. Thank you. This is Talk Sport.
Ella è mia manina. Io sono menino della. Ella è un mio amor. Io sono amore di Dio della.
It might not surprise you to know that the band's name is The Bees.
The Bees, that's right, yeah.
Quite like that song, actually.
Yeah, it's very good.
And there's a man who does an awful lot more about bees than we do. His name's Lloyd Cunniff. He's in Great Falls, Montana.
Yes.
Over in the Wild West, I'm going to say, but that's not obviously exactly what it's like. But Lloyd, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thanks very much for joining us. We read about your misfortune.
We did.
In one of the newspapers here in this country. I think it was in the Times, actually.
488 hives.
488 hives stolen when you were over in Sacramento. Tell us about it, first of all.
Well, we had taken our bees from Montana to California to do with the almond pollination, and we hauled them down there by semi-truck in the early part of December. And they were sitting down there with some of my friends, fellow beekeepers down there, waiting for us to come down in January to work on them. And when we went down in January 15th, I think, when we got down there, and we took some other bees, the rest of our bees with us, and we unloaded there on Monday the 16th, and we worked on half of the bees, and we thought they looked real good. It was real foggy; we couldn't hardly see or anything. And,
right.
And the next morning when we went out there to finish up what we started the day before, when we got there, all the bees were gone. Somebody had come in the nighttime and with a couple trucks and a forklift and picked them up and hauled them off somewhere.
Wow. And when you say you took them down there for the almond crop, I mean, is that something you do every year? You take the bees. What do you do with them as far as how do you get them to deal with the almond crop?
We take them from Montana when in the summertime we live in Montana and we're honey producers in Montana.
Okay.
And in the wintertime we haul them to California because they have close to 1 million acres of almonds down there, and they all need to be pollinated by the honeybees. And so the beekeepers from the western half of the United States basically all migrate to California in the Central Valley there, and that's where all the almonds are growing. And they pay us to come and set our bees in their almond orchards to pollinate their crop for them.
Fascinating.
Okay, it is absolutely fascinating business. Now the point is, Lloyd, so you leave these bees in somebody's care. Did you ever assume that they would... No, that's not the right word, sorry. Has this ever happened before? Do bees get stolen regularly? And what I'm saying is, were you caught unawares? Is this a new form of crime?
No, it's been going on down there. It's been known, amongst the beekeepers, but it's always been small time stuff. Or they might come and steal 24 colonies or 40 colonies at a time. It's never been such a big operation like it was the night they stole mine, because they stole my hives, and then they went down the road about 2 miles down the road, and they stole another 240 hives from another guy. So they got about 730 hives of bees.
So were these, Lloyd, were these all your hives? I mean, is your business now under threat? Have you been wiped out?
I'm totally wiped out. I got one hive of bees left.
And so what are you doing? Were you insured?
Yeah, we have talked to the insurance company. We did have theft insurance, but we still don't know how much they're going to pay us. What kind of a check we'll get from them. Yeah. Hopefully, it's enough to start over from scratch.
I mean, what sort of value would you put on that number of beehives? And I mean, how many actual bees were there? Would you say?
Oh, I have no idea how many bees what the number of bees. There'd be millions of bees in that many hives.
Millions.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what value could you put on that number of hives?
We valued them at $244,000.
Okay.
Blimey.
That's a massive. And what do you think has happened to them? I mean, first of all, who do you think has taken them?
And where?
And what would they be doing with them?
Well, it was pretty obvious that whoever took them was somebody in the know. They either were beekeepers or they still are beekeepers, because they had the trucks and the equipment and the knowledge to come in and pull that off that easy. And they knew they had really good awareness of the roads and the conditions down there. Right now in Northern California, where we were at, it's flooding really bad. They've had a really, really wet winter and fall too. So they knew the roads. They know which roads were passable, which bridges weren't washed out, and they were able to move all those bees. They would have had to made 3 trips to get that many colonies of bees that night.
Golly,
it's somebody local, that knows the ground really good
and very well organised. And the thing is, right, Lloyd, what now happens to the almond crop if they haven't got the bees to pollinate the crop will die, won't it? I mean, is it true that if bees were wiped out on Earth, then human beings would have to be wiped out because we wouldn't have any food?
Absolutely. They claim that that the humans would only survive about 2 years without honeybees, because of the amount of crops that they pollinate for us.
And so, what's happened to the almond crop?
Well, there's lots of bees down there right now. I know last year they were short. They were 40,000 colonies short to do all the pollination last year.
I'm sure, Lloyd, you're more concerned about trying to get your bees back. I mean, do the law enforcement people in Sacramento take this kind of thing seriously? I mean, do they hold out any hope for getting them back to you?
Well, the detective that I talked to that I've been working with, he told me the day that I had reported them being stolen, that there'd been 2,000 colonies stolen in that county that year.
Golly.
In the last year.
Yeah.
So, that's a drop in the bucket, really, compared to the 1.5 million colonies of bees that are down there right now. But and again, as far as the guys, whoever stole them, they'll just take them and they'll just take them somewhere and put them in an orchard somewhere and get paid for it with them and pretend that they're theirs.
Right. Yeah. Is it a pretty unregulated business? I mean, when you show up to, say, an almond orchard, nobody says, "Can you prove that these bees are yours?" or something?
Yeah. No, it's not really watched that close. I don't think that's one of my concerns, and was that we need the California almond growers. Yeah. And the California Beekeepers Association and all the sheriffs and everybody, they need to get together some way to kind of track these bees a little bit better.
Sure.
Everybody that's from California are required to have their names on the equipment. And a lot of the ones that I see are just stenciled, painted on the side of the box as well. Somebody can take a roll of paint and just cover it right up.
Yeah.
Some guys brand them with branding irons.
Yeah, sure. And Lloyd, tell me this. This sounds, before this terrible theft, this sounds like you might have been part of the great American dream. You built up a small business into a big business, and is it more than a one-generation business? Did your father and your grandfather start this thing?
It was It was my grandfather started it in the early 50s, him and his brother. Right. And then I worked for him when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I started working in the bees when I was 13 years old, and I'm coming up on 57 now. So, yeah, it's all I've ever done.
Golly, that's amazing.
And do you sell honey direct from your place in Montana? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out whether we can generate any honey business for you while you're trying to recover.
Yeah, I sell it out of my house in town, but my major place that I get rid of my honey is I belong to Sioux Honey Association.
Okay.
And there's 300 members, and we're the biggest honey packers in the world.
Right.
Really? They pack.
But can people order it from the UK and get it online or anything?
They could get a hold of me. They could get a hold of me, like on my email or something, and I could send it to them.
Okay.
The freight would be crazy for them to get it over there.
Maybe that's not something we can do. But I'll have a word with our producer afterwards. We'll see what we can do. Because it's a shocking story. It really is. And it's
a heartbreaker.
And will you have to find effectively another couple of $100,000 to buy as many bees as you previously had?
No, say that again.
Will you need to find $200,000 or so to restock your bees?
Right. Yeah, I'll have to. Hopefully my insurance company comes through for me, because I don't have that kind of cash to start up. So
we did some research into this, Lloyd, and we were told that insurance policies for your business are prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive. Yeah, we have what we call a farm policy, and it covers my vehicles and the policy for the farm itself, and the livestock and my house and everything. It's all a big blanket policy.
Sure.
And then when they find out you're a beekeeper, then they have a beekeeper rider that they attach to it. That's more money,
And perhaps
Perhaps
most importantly, Lloyd, if you get your stock back, if you're lucky enough to do a deal with an insurance company, if you can raise the money and do it, how can you ensure this never happens again, or can't you?
Well, I don't think you can. From the guys that I talked to in California, the day that it happened, I drove around and looked for my bees in the fog, and I talked to a few beekeepers that I saw in their bee yards, and one guy I talked to, he had 300 colonies stolen last year, and his stuff was all marked real well, but he's gone to electronic GPS trackers that are stashed in his hives.
I see.
And so if somebody comes and moves them, they actually call him on his cell phone and tell him that that somebody's messing with them. They're going down the highway, and you can track them. So,
right. So
you're talking $100 and some a hive to do that.
Golly, yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's a terrible story. Well, listen, Lloyd, we can only wish you luck.
Indeed.
And we'll see what we can do to figure out if
we can possibly help.
Can possibly help you. But good luck with restarting it all up, and I guess good luck with keeping hold of the bees the next time.
Oh yeah, we learn something new every year, and I learned to
maybe stick a guy with a shotgun, on the hives or something like that.
Well, you'd have to do that, wouldn't you? You'd have to have a guy patrolling.
They're doing that.
Yeah, absolutely right, Lloyd. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Terrible story, Lloyd Cunliffe there from Montana.
Wiped out by bee thieves.
I have to say, not that in any way we're trying to sort of minimise or trivialise. No. Michael says that Lloyd guy has been well and truly stung. Which you have to say is, I suppose, an obvious thing to say.
He has, but
we have a great deal of sympathy for him.
He sounds like a typical Midwest farmer, doesn't he? He lives off the land.
Sounds a great guy.
Yeah, terrific.
If I could have bought some of his honey, I would have done.
Yeah, I would have.
But we'll find out whether there's a way of getting some of that stuff shipped. And I think there might be a Just Giving page for that. Doug says this, completely off the subject, right? He's texted into 81089.
Yeah.
For the perfect slumber every time, use your hand to pat a nice resting place for your head in a feather pillow. He says, I feel mad sending this, but know that you will value this secret. Thanks for your company.
Oh, well, I've said before, and I mean it now, if I want to get up at 8 o'clock, I bang my head on the pillow 8 times, and I get up at 8 o'clock.
Do you?
Yes, it's happened to me for years.
Yeah.
Except I never get up at 8 o'clock. It's when I get up at 4:30 I have a problem, because I don't know whether to bang my head 4 times or 5 times.
Yeah, well, about 4.5 times.
I do. That's what I do. I bang it 4.5 times.
Completely bonkers.
No.
You know that?
No. I've been doing it for years.
Yeah, well, that would explain it.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Got out of town on a boat going to Southern Islands, sailing to reach before a following sea. She was making for the trades on the outside, and the downhill off the wind on this heading line of the Marquesas.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Porkyvision coming up in the next hour. Tomorrow, of course, it's going to be Postman Pork and the Porky Quiz, which we haven't figured out yet. But why are we playing Crosby, Stills and Nash?
Well, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, because it is the birthday today of Graham Nash.
Oh, is it? I think that's without Young, actually, that one. That particular song.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he wasn't with them all the time.
I always thought Graham Nash was great. Graham Nash did an LP, right? Yeah. I don't know why I remember this. But
he's a guy from the Hollies, isn't he?
Well, this is the very point. He's from the Hollies. The Hollies wrote all these great songs like Bus Stop and The Air That I Breathe. He Ain't Heavy Is My Brother.
Yeah. The day that somebody shot down crazy somebody or other?
Liberty Valance.
No. It was the day that Crazy Sam shot down somebody
I don't know anything about that.
Which was a big hit.
Yeah, but they had lots of big hits. And what I'm saying is he then went off and became a superstar in America, right?
Yeah.
But then he produced an album. I don't know why I remember this, but it was a great album. It was called Winds from the East by Graham Nash.
Okay.
And there were some incredibly good songs on it. He's
a very accomplished musician.
He's a very accomplished musician. Anyway, he's 77
Lived through
today.
the hippie period.
Lived through the
David
hippie period.
Crosby hasn't survived quite so well, has he?
Well, Crosby became a really fat guy, really fat guy.
Well, it's not so much that he became very fat.
But he became a bit disorientated with the fatness. If you see what I mean,
it wasn't so much the fatness as I think he was eating way too much on the basis that he was, shall we say, delving into quite a lot of different substances.
Yes, he's 75 today. Anyway, Graham Nash. So
we thought he's 77.
No, 75. No, I just corrected that. So I thought we'd just wish him happy birthday and all that. Now I'll tell you what else it is today.
What else is it?
The annual anniversary of.
Yeah.
You won't believe this, but it's the annual anniversary.
You kept saying I won't believe this.
Of one of the most famous films ever seen in this world, because it's not this country, it's American. It's Groundhog Day.
Is it Groundhog Day?
It is
you mean
Groundhog Day today.
But is it actually Groundhog Day, or is it the anniversary of the release of the film?
No, it's Groundhog Day.
Oh, okay.
This is
well,
when...
to be honest, every day's Groundhog Day for me. I come in here, you start spouting nonsense, throw a few insults my way.
Well, I thought you might.
And I go home
thinking,
that, it was just like yesterday.
But this is the day, fictionally, when Bill Murray, the sort of washed up and rather cynical TV presenter, was told by his producer to get in the truck and get down to, was it Pixhorsey?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, Pixhorsey.
It's in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, that's right.
Punxsutawney or something like that.
Punxsutawney, I think it is. Punxsutawney or something like that.
It's not. It's not another one of those films that I've never really been particularly into, and I've never watched it all the way through.
Oh, really? I think it's great. It's a great film.
Well, it's similar to Braveheart you talked about last night.
Yes.
I never really liked it that much, and I've never really liked Groundhog Day.
Well, I like Groundhog Day because of the cynicism of Bill Murray. Everything was too much trouble, and we've seen so many people like that in our profession. Can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Get out there and do the story. Okay, I'll do it on the phone. Yeah. No, you get out there. You get over there. You do.
But isn't it? I mean, one of the things I think that put me off it was that they keep replaying bits of it, don't they? Isn't that the point
they have
of the film?
because the whole point of the film is that
I didn't like it.
Groundhog Day now means every day's the same.
Yeah,
and
but that's what I mean. That's what kind of put me off
But it's also a love story between him and the girl who was in 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Eh?
The actress.
Oh, Andy McDowell.
Amy McDowell.
Andy
McDowell.
Yeah.
Andy McDowell and him eventually fall in love. In fact, she rescues him from this time warp that he's locked in by falling in love with him. You see what I mean?
I see.
That's the way that it's all resolved.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that particularly turns me on. So, what are you saying? Is this going to be some form of the Porky quiz scenario then?
Well, I thought it could be. I thought, we could look at Groundhog Day or maybe the career of Bill Murray.
Well, technically, if we did a quiz on Groundhog Day, every question would have to be the same.
Well, exactly.
Actually, that might work quite well for you.
That would help me, yeah.
Well, it might not, because you might still get them all wrong.
Well, no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would.
I'll just ask you 10 questions the same.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just keep asking me the same question, except that you can ask me the same question, but I don't have to give you the same answer.
Well, no,
so
you
I
wouldn't.
give you 10 different versions of an answer.
You could. So you probably get about 2 out of 10 then.
What about? I might get 1 out of 10, wouldn't I? Because there'll all be different answers. So what about the career of Bill Murray?
Bill Murray, I would go for that because I think Groundhog Day is a single sort of topic. Unless you want it to be Groundhog Day, including the movie, including the fact that they take they wait to see whether the Groundhog Company.
No. I think Bill Murray's better because he was in Ghostbusters.
He certainly was.
No, he's in Ghostbusters. In Groundhog Day. What else was he in?
He was in lots and lots of films.
He wasn't in that news one, was he? Where the newscaster goes mad and
Network.
Network. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think that was slightly before his time.
Slightly before his time, was it?
He was in that movie with Scarlett Johansson, wasn't he? That was set in Japan.
Japan.
Lost in Translation.
I don't remember that one. No, I think that's too narrow. I think we'll keep thinking.
So you don't want to do a quiz on Bill Murray?
No, I don't. I don't know.
We've got to decide on this show what we're doing.
We will.
So you're going to need to get your skates on.
I will do it in the next half hour, okay?
Will you?
No problem at all.
Well, I mean, we could always go, route one, and I could just announce what the quiz is going to be.
Yeah, you could do, but I mean, I need to have some sort of handle on what it's all about, because otherwise you've got a very unfair advantage by taking a subject that you know a lot about, but I necessarily don't.
It's nothing to do with me.
You see, I don't necessarily.
You have to get this sense of competition out of your mind. This is not about a competition between you and I. It is a quiz for you.
Well, that's the way it always turns out.
Well, no, it doesn't. You see it that way because you think you have to beat me at everything. But actually, all I'm doing here is I'm sitting here as a cipher for the independent quizmasters, right? They give me the questions. I read them out. It makes no difference to me whether you get 10 or none. Because it's not a question of winning or losing.
Is that right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
Now,
we will sort it before the end of this show.
David says Spielberg has had massive flops as well, and he sent me a poster of a film called 1941.
Right.
Which I don't particularly remember. It got Dan Aykroyd in it and Ned Beatty.
Yeah, what's that?
And it looks like a movie about the Second World War, but they call it a comedy spectacular.
Oh, yeah?
And Chris, on the subject of Duel, says my old man had to record that on VHS 3 times after missing the ending twice.
Record what?
Duel. We were talking about Steven Spielberg's Duel.
Oh, yes, of course. Duel.
Duel.
You pronounce it as though it's a jewel in the crown.
No, Duel.
Duel. No, it's duel.
Well, it sounds the same.
D-U-A-L. Duel.
Duel. It's pronounced Duel.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. No. Yeah,
anyway, get on with it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
he says it took him a couple of years to see the ending of it.
Right.
Because his father's version never actually had it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Liam says Graham Nash wasn't in the Hollies when The Air That I Breathe and He Ain't Heavy were released.
Oh, is that right?
He'd already left the band by then.
Yeah, but I think he'd written the songs with them. I think they'd written those songs. Yeah, they had a bank of songs which they'd written when they first sort of got together and all that. So I think he was influential in the production of them. Yes,
Ian in Shenzhen has said, I must wake up at 3:55 a.m. to watch midweek football.
Yeah.
How many times should I bang my head on the pillow?
4 times.
4 times?
Yes.
Well, then you'll miss the first 5 minutes, surely.
No, you won't, because actually you get an awareness of the fact that you're going to have to be up in about 7 minutes.
Why?
Well, I don't know. You just do.
Well, then you wake up 7 minutes before time.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do a bit. Yeah, you do, honestly, a bit. Yeah. That is
Mark says this. What happens if you forget to bang your head on your pillow?
Well, don't forget. I mean, are you talking about bladderation?
I don't know.
If you're guilty of bladderation, you're going to make mistakes in life. So don't get bladderated. That's the answer. Okay.
Marino says, that was a great interview with the bee guy. Good job, guys, though I will still swat bees in barbecue season. It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
I will still what? Swat them. I would never swat a bee. A bee is a beautiful creature.
Also, they're more like wasps that you have to swat in barbecue season.
Yes, wasps I would, because they can sting it. They're like hornets and that kind of stuff. But if you see a bee is only interested in buzzing around a flower, because that's what its life depends on.
Well, anything that has pollen that they can get their paws on.
Exactly.
Here's one from Scott. He says, let's start a hashtag to support poor Lloyd. Hashtag show me the honey. That's not bad.
Show me the honey.
And Ian says, after that poor beekeeper story, I'm surprised he didn't play the BeeGees.
With BeeGees?
Yeah.
Why? BeeGees?
Why would you play the BeeGees after a story about bees?
Oh, I see. Yeah, well, but that's a bit of tenuous connection, isn't it? You know.
Well, it's not any less tenuous than playing a song by a band called The Bees.
Hang on. BG stands for Barry Gibb. It doesn't stand for, anything to do with bees, does it?
By the way, I spotted an interview with Mr. Gibb earlier on. It's in the Mirror today. And he says, basically, that he's now so scared of dying that he doesn't drive fast or risk anything that could be fatal.
Yeah, isn't it weird?
Well, it's not supposedly. I suppose it's not that weird. I mean, given what's happened to his brothers, that he's now the last surviving and oldest BG. He was scalded with boiling water as a child and scarred for life.
That's terrible.
He says, I avoid boiling water to this day. My sister once caught fire, and that was a terrifying experience.
It is.
And he says, I don't do things like going to roller coasters. I'm a safety first kind of person.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't like to see my sister suddenly burst into flames. That'd be a shocking thing to happen, wouldn't it?
And it's possible as well, given how much alcohol she drinks, right?
Oh, that's a really cruel thing to say.
It could spontaneously combust.
Hey, listen, when you get tomatoes at home, where do you store them?
Where do I store them?
Yeah.
I like to keep them in the fridge.
Ah, well, you see, that's where you go completely wrong.
No, that's not wrong.
That ruins your tomatoes.
No, it doesn't.
It ruins tomatoes.
No, look how
I've seen a new report.
Like a little boy with a new toy.
No, I've got a new report.
I'm perfectly well aware of people who say you should keep them outside of the fridge.
Yeah.
I happen to think they're incorrect.
Tomatoes have dramatically lost their flavour in the last 50 years, says a report by Dr. Harry Klee, who is a member of the University of Florida Tomato Investigation Team. What's your problem?
Tomato investigation team.
Yeah, tomato investigation team.
It's a bit like what's his name, Crocker. You roll up the sleeves of his jacket and take his socks off and sit in a made-up Ferrari.
No.
And with the tomato investigations team.
No, this
up
is
against the
serious.
wall.
They are investigating and try and find out why tomatoes have lost their sweetness and their unique taste over the last 50 years.
Well, yeah, I can answer that for you.
And they put a lot of it down to the fact that people keep them in fridges.
Rubbish.
And they're frozen before they get to you.
It's absolutely incorrect.
And what do you think it is?
The reason that many pieces of food, like fruit and vegetables in particular, have lost their flavour is because they're mass-produced. If you buy fruits and vegetables from a place where they are not mass-produced and they're more organic, they will taste 100% better, I can assure you. And it's all very well saying keep them keep them outside of the fridge, but, depending on how many tomatoes you tend to use over the course of a week, they will go off quicker. And if you buy decent tomatoes in the first place, they taste very good.
Well, the thing is that a good tomato has sugar and acids in it, which are negated when you put them in fridges and freeze them.
Yeah.
The other thing is...
Where do you buy your tomatoes, then?
Morrison's, actually, yeah.
Well, I would stop
in
buying
Market
them
Street.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll buy you some tomatoes from Borough Market next time we're over there, and I will cut one open for you while we're standing in the pub.
Right.
And you taste that, and you will tell me that they are much better.
The average tomato used to weigh 3.5 ounces. It now weighs 7 ounces.
Well, that depends. If it's a cherry tomato, there are about 100 different varieties.
And that's because they're making the tomatoes bigger because they produce them with chemicals and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, of course,
now.
that's the reason they don't taste them anything. We've run out of time now. We'll talk more about tomatoes coming up. This is Talk Sport. I've had a great idea, actually, about the quiz.
Yes, go on.
Did you know what today is the anniversary of?
The anniversary of?
Groundhog Day.
Get
it?
Hey, listen, I've had a great idea about the quiz.
What?
Do you know what today is?
What is it?
It's the anniversary of Groundhog Day.
Is it Groundhog Day?
Groundhog Day.
All right. Why don't we do that then?
Groundhog Day.
Shall we do Groundhog Day?
Let's do Groundhog Day.
I don't think it's a big enough subject.
I don't think it's a big enough subject.
No, you don't have to keep repeating everything.
I do. It's Groundhog Day.
Oh, for God's
Listen,
sake.
I'll tell you what I want to talk to you about. We'll get the quiz sorted in a minute.
Okay.
In a minute, right. Now, remember I've said to you, and you've always mocked me, because I've said one of my great fears in life is poverty.
That's right.
Right?
Well, it's your only fear, isn't it?
Maybe it is,
because you've kind of conquered your fear of many other things.
Yes, that's right.
But you'll never conquer your fear of poverty.
That's right. By the way, you know that the tomato investigation
unit.
Yeah,
I think we should have some music for that.
No,
like the Miami Vice music.
No. People have said that. Do you realise that the tomato investigation team are known as TIT?
TIT.
Yeah, it's a bit harsh.
Well, that's a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's terrible, isn't it?
And Marino says on the tomato talk, Tesco's sugar drop Toms on the vine are good. Doesn't say anything on the packaging about mutation.
Yes, okay. Tomato.
I mean, you can buy organic tomatoes in supermarkets, which do taste better. Yeah, I have to tell you.
Well, tomato investigation team being pointed out again are they known as the TIT unit?
Well, you've already made that joke.
But several people have picked it up.
Well, that doesn't mean you have to keep reading them all out.
Well, I think you should, because I'm grateful to people who are correspondents. Anyway, listen.
Yeah.
Now, you've always mocked me for saying, you were. But do you know that according to a report in my scientific journals, poverty, right, this is no joke, worse for your health than either obesity or dependency on alcohol?
Well, I don't think that's any surprise. And quite often the three things will go together in this country. Only in this country can you be poor and obese and an alcoholic.
I'm absolutely right to have cited poverty as something to fear. It says here...
Why?
Because I'm going to read my report to you from the journal.
But you can be obese and have a problem with alcohol and still not be poor. Can't you?
I don't care. Poverty is something which has always frightened me. Now, listen to this.
Go on.
Being poor is a bigger health risk than being fat or having high blood pressure, a major study has concluded.
Oh, yeah. Who's done this study?
This study was done by... let me see. It was done by...
Poverty Action Group?
No.
Shelter?
No.
Oxfam?
No. Just shut up and I'll tell you.
Then.
I'll tell you.
I'm telling you.
It was done by the University of Lausanne.
Lausanne
University Hospital in Switzerland.
Very nice.
Okay.
There's not much poverty in Switzerland, is there?
Eh?
There's not a lot of poverty in Switzerland.
No. Do you know who the leader of the investigation group was?
The leader of what?
The leader of the investigation group at the team that investigated it at Lausanne University.
Did they borrow somebody from the tomato investigations team for
No,
it?
you idiot. But she's got a very strange name.
Go on.
Her name is Sylvia Stringy-Hingy.
Sylvia Stringy-Hingy?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
of the Lausanne University Hospital, Switzerland.
Do you remember Sylvia's mother?
I do.
Dr. Hook.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. And lead author of the paper, she said, given the huge impact of socio-economic status on health... Socio-economic status on health, it's vital that governments accept poverty as a major risk factor and stop excluding it from health policy.
Well, they don't exclude it from health policy.
She
Almost
says,
all health policy in this country, certainly, is aimed at what they call the poor people.
Yeah. She says reducing poverty, improving education and creating safe homes, schools and work environments are central to overcoming the impact of socio-economic deprivation.
Yeah.
By doing this, socio-economic status could be targeted and improved, leading to better wealth and health for many. She says,
Stringy-Hingy, right?
Yes, Sylvia Stringy-Hingy.
Stringy, that can't be a real name.
It's a name, honestly.
That's ridiculous.
No, it's not. It's a name.
Well, it's a bit obvious, this, isn't it?
Anyway, it says, what about this? Poorer people's life expectancy is reduced by 2.1 years, which is greater than the reductions associated with high blood pressure, obesity, or dependency on alcohol consumption.
Yeah.
Which respectively...
But you can do both. That's what I'm saying. You can have both of those problems without being poor, can't you?
Actually, this is a bit of a shock.
Go on.
Because it says that dependency on alcohol only reduces your life by about 6 months.
Well, that depends on how much dependency you have, I suppose.
I was going to say, worth taking the risk, really, isn't it, if it's only 6 months?
Well, hang on. You don't believe any of these stories. When the general medical officer in this country tells you to cut down on your drinking by 1 glass of wine a day, you immediately sort of attack them for being fascist meddlers.
Well, I do.
In nanny state. But you're quite happy to go along with old Stringy-Hingy.
Yeah.
Who says that, don't worry, you'll only lose 6 months of your life.
That's right.
If you're dependent on alcohol.
However, if you're an inveterate smoker like you are, being inactive reduces life expectancy by 2.4 years.
Yeah.
So couch potatoes...
Well, I'm not inactive.
...can write off 30 months.
What makes you think I'm inactive?
Oh, no, but it's even worse for you. But smoking, and those who unfortunately suffer from diabetes, can lose up to 4.8 years of their life.
Well, easy come, easy go.
Hey?
Easy come,
Nearly
easy go.
5 years. Knocking 5 years off your life, you are.
Does it run concurrent, or is it...
No.
Can you, for example, if you're knocking 5 years off your life from smoking, is it then a further 6 months for drinking?
Yes, it is.
So that's five and a half years.
5.5 years in your case. Now,
well, that'll be 5.5 years enough to put up with you.
Ms. Stringy-Hingy says, from what we know from other studies, individuals with a low socio-economic status are more likely to suffer poor health for several reasons, among others,
obvious,
the conditions to which they've been exposed in early life.
Yeah, well, that's obvious, isn't it? I mean, people who are generally less well off have less, generally speaking, less education because they have access to less education. They have less good health because they have access to less good health.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to look at the United States of America, where people who can't afford to have the type of insurance which gives them preventative medicine suffer from all kinds of things.
Yes.
You know, their teeth fall out, they can't put them back in because they can't afford to go to the dentist.
No, that's absolutely true.
You know.
She says, from what we know from other studies...
It's revelatory, this, is it?
She says the conditions to which these people have been exposed in early life, their higher exposure to environmental toxins, the higher prevalence of health risk behaviour, their higher psychological stress and lack of social support, their lower access to and use of healthcare services. A point you've just raised. Well, so, next time you say to me, oh, you know, you're pathetic, I'm telling you.
I'm telling you. What are you telling me about?
That I fear poverty because poverty can kill you, I've just discovered.
No, you don't feel poverty.
I didn't know that.
No, you don't care about being killed. I mean, you don't care that your health regimen is actually unwisely reckless given the condition that you have with your heart. What you care about is not being able to buy your way out of trouble or buy your way into better places that you'd like to be.
That's an outrageous thing to say.
That's what I mean. You would fear having to travel economy class when you went on a plane. You know, that's your problem. It's not about dying. It's about wanting to be a snob.
I'm going on a plane soon.
Are you?
Well, not soon, but certainly in the summer.
Where?
I'm going to Santorini.
Oh, you told me that. Yeah, you've sorted it now.
I've sorted it.
You've booked it.
You want to see the place I'm going to? I
really?
mean, I'm telling you.
I'm telling you.
No, I'm telling you.
Well, just make sure you take plenty of sunscreen, is all I'm saying.
Guess what I've got on my balcony, on my penthouse room, for my own personal use?
I don't know, piano?
No. My own personal jacuzzi.
Jacuzzi?
Yes.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, it is, isn't
What a waste that will be.
Yeah, my own personal jacuzzi.
What, are you going to sit in it naked?
No, I'm not.
Why not?
I'm thinking, eh?
You know, the worst thing to have in a hot climate is a jacuzzi.
Why?
Well, I went to Mexico, right, and had a jacuzzi in the room.
Yeah.
But it was, hardly ever used it because it's so hot.
Yeah.
Right? Even when you put the air conditioning on, you don't want to sit in a jacuzzi because the last thing you want is hot water.
Can't you have a cold jacuzzi?
No.
Why not?
No, because it only does hot water.
No, he doesn't. Jacuzzis do cold water.
No, they don't.
That's the whole idea.
It's called a hot tub. The water's hot.
What do you think about a chat-up line when I'm in a cool bar in Santorini? You know what I mean, looking elegant because I'm having a new.
Are you
going to
wear those? You're having a new suit made?
Yeah, because I'm going to a wedding.
Who by?
Hey?
Who's you getting it made by?
Well, get it made by a tailor, obviously.
But which tailor?
Well, I don't know. I'll go and find one. But what do you think about the,
You get it made at Mothercare.
No, I'm leaning on the bar there, with a glass of, what are they drinking, Greece?
Ouzo.
Ouzo, that's right, with a glass of ouzo in my hand.
You start drinking ouzo, you'll be flat on the floor by about 8 o'clock.
And I spot...
Oh, that horrible wine, Domestico. You ever had that?
Domestico.
It's disgusting.
Sounds like
It sounds like Domestos.
Yeah.
It tastes quite like it as well.
Can you imagine just leaning on the bar there coolly and just saying to a member of the opposite sex...
How will you be dressed with your new suit on?
Yeah.
You'll be a bit hot, won't you?
Well, no, I'll have my jacket on one shoulder only.
Okay.
And one of my new pink shirts. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And
you'd be sweating profusely.
No, I won't. No, I'll keep cool. And imagine saying to a member of the opposite sex who's just happened to.
Well, is this a Greek person or
probably a Greek person? Or no, it could be a tourist or something like that. Imagine me saying. Would you like to come and share my jacuzzi?
Yeah, that'll go down. That'll work really well for you.
Yeah, I think it would.
Yeah.
I think it would.
And she'll probably say, certainly, Mr. Parry, that'll be 500 quid.
No, you idiot. I'd say, how impressive is that?
I had that once,
How impressive is that? You say, would you like to come up and see my jacuzzi? I think that's a great chat-up line.
Yeah.
Well, what happened to you?
Well, I'll have to tell you next because we're out of time.
Okay.
But, I was, I didn't have a jacuzzi.
No.
But I did get that answer. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mikes, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Hey! The sun goes down like a bad dream. You end up tight, gotta let off steam. They say they can break you again and again. If life is a radio, turn up to 10. It's a crazy.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes. Porkyvision coming up very, very shortly. Got some great tweets, actually, that I must read out a few of. Vicky said, so sad. Please keep us updated on the B-Man. Shocked that the plank was nice to him.
Yeah.
I hope old Moneybags Parry buys up all his honey.
Well, if we can help, we will.
Yeah, now how about this one from David, apropos of the games last night?
Yes.
I'm not putting this down as a massive excuse for Tottenham not beating Sunderland, but did you notice how long the grass was?
No. I can hear the grass grow. I can hear the grass grow. That was the move, wasn't it?
It may have been.
Yeah.
It's not a song I know that well.
Right, okay.
Mick says, how about this for a chat-up line, Porky? Do you fancy a pickled egg in my jacuzzi?
No.
And Tom says, so Parry will find a tailor to make him a suit. Is Pierre Cardin in the phone book?
Yeah, well, he could be, yeah. Why not?
And here's one from Vicky as well. Surely the quiz has to be Super Bowl-themed. The plank lived in America for yonks. He must have learned something about it.
Well, funny enough...
We did suggest that yesterday.
We have now decided on a subject, and in fact, actually, although we sounded like we were struggling over a subject, we weren't. We had a list of 12, and upon that list was a Super Bowl-themed idea, and that is the fact that the Super Bowl is taking place where?
It's in Houston.
And Houston is in which state?
It's in Texas.
And what are we going to do the quiz on?
The Lone Star State, I would say.
We certainly are.
The Lone Star State.
The yellow roses, was it? What? Yellow rose of Texas as she came riding round the mountain, or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that. Johnny says, no offence, but I'm certain MG will outlive Porky.
The mountain when
are you
she
listening?
Comes. Sorry.
I don't think that's a Texas song.
Yeah,
no offence, but I'm certain MG will outlive Porky because he's chilling like Matt Dillon on penicillin.
Oh, really? Chilling like Matt Dillon on penicillin.
And a happy guy.
Right, so it's on Texas.
So it's on Texas, yeah.
I've spent a lot of time in Texas. Waco, the Waco siege. I was there when that went
there's
up.
loads of things happening in Texas. There's the Alamo.
The Alamo, Austin I've been to quite a few times.
Dallas, of course, the fictional place that you like talking about.
Well, Dallas is not a fictional place.
No, but the fictional place in the series that you like talking about.
Well,
so it's a very wide range.
South Fork Ranch exists.
But I don't know that it was called South Fork, except for in the TV show.
Yeah, that's right. I was on the campaign trail, actually,
Dallas
with
cheerleaders.
Bill Clinton in Houston.
Were you?
Yeah.
Where'd you stay?
I don't know, the best hotel.
I was sent to Houston to cover an amazing trial of a cheerleader, right, who was in the high school cheerleading troupe.
Right.
But she got kicked out of the high school cheerleading troupe because somebody else got into it ahead of her.
Yes.
Who was thought to be better.
So her mother objected.
And her mother not only objected, hired a hitman to kill the other cheerleader.
That's right,
so that her daughter could get back in.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And so there was an attempted murder charge against the mother.
These sort of things happen in America.
And while I was there, they one of the papers I was working for asked me to go and check out this place called the Gentleman's Club.
Yes.
Because it was the first ever lap dancing club in the world.
Was it, really? Yeah.
So I had to go and do that as well.
Okay. What I remember about Houston is every time I got out the car, your shirt immediately turns to wet.
Very hot, yeah.
No, I mean instantly. You know, it's the humidity was incredible.
I stayed at the Four Seasons when I was there.
Yeah, I could have stayed there.
You probably did, yeah.
Probably did,
no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the story I was going to tell you earlier,
I
think actually happened in Washington. When
DC?
When I was at a bar one night and got talking to this girl.
Was it the Occidental?
It wasn't the Occidental bar. No, but it was a hotel bar. I think.
Oh well, it could have been the Round Robin in the one that gives a W. You know,
the Willard.
Yeah, the Willard, the Round Robin bar.
I don't think it was in there because
everybody used to go there.
They did, but I wasn't with anybody else. I'd been working with a photographer, and he had to go home, and I was in this other hotel that I was staying in. I think it was called the Dolly Madison. Do you remember that hotel? It was up on. I think it was up on. It was just up from the White House, sort of on. Yeah. I don't know, 15th Street or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
There's a lot of hotels around there.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Yes.
Anyway, I got talking to this girl, and she was very friendly and everything, and we started to get along quite well. We had a couple of drinks, blah blah blah. Got to about 11 o'clock at night.
You started thinking of sexual exploitation.
Why not? Why wouldn't you?
Well,
there's no law against it.
You always would, yeah.
There's no law against it. It seemed very attractive, and things seemed to be going well.
Yes.
And I said, do you know I'm staying here? And she was like, okay, what sort of room have you got? And I can't remember what I said, but I didn't have a jacuzzi, mind you.
No, yeah.
And I said, yeah, well, we could go up there and have another drink if you like. And she said, yeah, that'd be great. And then she leaned over to me, and I thought she was going to kiss me. And she leaned into my ear and said, that'll be $500.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had no idea that she was a hooker.
Right.
And I said, I'm terribly sorry. I said, that's not really what I had in mind. But, so we ended up staying. We had one more drink. And then she wandered off and started talking to some other people because obviously she saw that I wasn't going to give her any money.
She was seeking business.
Yeah.
What did she look like then?
Gorgeous.
She didn't look like a hooker.
No, well, I mean, she was beautiful.
Yeah.
Very beautiful.
Well, didn't you suspect? I mean, crikey almighty, she was on her own in a hotel bar.
No.
She, a fat slob like you walks in, she gets all friendly with you. You must have suspected.
Well, that happens to me quite a lot. It may come as a surprise to you.
Yes.
Yeah, that happens to me quite a lot.
What happens?
And that's the only time that somebody...
What, hookers are approaching you all the time in hotel bars? That happens quite a lot, does it? I wouldn't boast about that, frankly.
No, but walking into a bar and talking to people, I don't walk into bars and immediately ask for a roped-off area where I can sit on my own and read the papers, right? What the point is that I quite often strike up conversations with young women in bars, or I certainly did when I was a young man, and none of the others were hookers, so why would I think they would be?
One of the first times I was in New York, I went to a bar just off Times Square.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah, it was a bad idea because...
Times Square was like the Wild West in the 80s.
Yeah, but it was a hotel bar as well.
Even worse.
Yeah, it was even worse.
Was it rent by the hour?
No, it wasn't. But I mean, it was that sort of place, obviously, because I'm sitting in the bar. I was waiting for somebody. I was waiting for somebody from our profession, so to speak, somebody from South Street, I think, or something. And I'm sitting there, and a very glamorous woman comes in and sits 2 stools away from me at the bar.
Right.
But the rest of the bar was empty.
Right.
So she's invaded my personal space. You see
what I mean?
Not
really. That would have been the next stool. But if she's 2 away, maybe she wanted you to talk to her.
Well, precisely. But anyway...
Well, what's wrong with that?
Well, being an Englishman, being British and being terribly reserved...
You?
Yes.
Reserved?
Yes. I didn't feel that I should...
You must have been sober then.
I should sort of pipe up and start, getting, sort of frisky. You know what I mean?
You don't have to get frisky. You just start talking to people.
She was very good looking. But anyway, I didn't get the chance because after about 90 seconds...
Yeah.
And she, she hadn't even spoken to Bob or anything. She said, "Hey," and I said, I looked around like that, yeah. And and then she said, "Yeah, you." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you gay?" I said, "What? Are you gay?"
She's a bit of a troublemaker, this woman.
No, I said, "No, as a matter of fact, I'm not." I said, "Why?" She said, "Why aren't you speaking to me?" And I said, "Well, I'm awfully sorry." I said, "Don't you like me?" I mean, she's a nutter, but I'm sure she was a hooker.
Well, she may have been, yeah.
She wanted to know why 30 seconds after plonking herself down on a stool, 2 stools away from me in an empty bar, I hadn't said, "Hello."
Yeah.
You want some action?
Hello.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you like to come back to my jacuzzi?
That's right, yeah.
Here's one from David. He says, when I was in Santorini, an Armenian cafe owner got upset with a local Greek cafe owner and cut his throat. Enjoy. You better watch out for the old banditos.
I'm looking forward to that, yeah. Be fantastic.
Here's one from a world traveller who says, chat up line for Porky. Would you like to come upstairs for a dip in my jacuzzi? Yeah. We can give your Labrador a bowl of water.
That's a bit harsh.
That's very good.
Yeah, it is.
Now, one thing we have failed to mention so far on the show tonight is, of course, the funeral service yesterday for Graham Taylor.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you saw that on TV.
I certainly did. It was
quite
very
a good turnout for him, not only inside the church, where there's about 400 people. Some of them, managers current day. I think Arsene Wenger was there. John Barnes was there. Sir Alex Ferguson.
Lots of people there.
And very, very lovely crowd outside who applauded as his coffin was taken away in the hearse.
And then, of course, the cortege drove around Watford's ground.
Yeah.
Sort of one last time, his final journey and all that. Very touching. I tell you who else was there. John Motson.
John Motson, yes,
BBC.
with a sheepskin coat.
Yeah.
Was he wearing the sheepskin coat?
I don't think he was wearing a sheepskin coat, but it was very touching.
No sign of Elton John, though, I don't think, was there?
I don't know. You asked me that, and I wasn't sure, but I know that Elton John spends a good part of his year on tour, doesn't he, in all sorts of places like Las Vegas and whatever, so maybe it wasn't available.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of football's better guys, certainly, dispatched today.
A couple of the papers have got quotes from Sir Elton.
Yes.
So I'm not. Yeah, he was out of the country, but his message was read out by John Motson.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, he talks about various times that they spoke kind of in a very intimate way.
Yeah.
And he said neither of us would ever imagine the changes that would have come to the club. He said the last time we spoke before Christmas was all about how proud we both were of the club and how it is today. But he also said that when he was in the midst of his substance abuse problem, Graham Taylor once took him aside to warn him that his substance abuse was letting him and the club down.
Yeah.
And he said his lecture to me one day shook me to the core. So, I mean, he actually had an enormous influence
that's right.
on Elton John's personal activities as well.
Well, what I didn't quite realise until I read into it was that Graham Taylor went and joined Watford when they were still in the 4th division. And he came only from Lincoln City, so it wasn't like, he suddenly made this leap as young manager from Lincoln to another club, and he took them all the way up. The other thing, actually, which was very interesting, was well, actually, I'll save it for Porkyvision, which is coming up next. But basically, it's all about the fact that Bobby Moore thought he was in line to get that job. With Elton John.
Is that right?
Yeah, but it didn't work out, and I'll tell you about that later.
Oh, okay. All right. Winford, finally, before we go to Porkyvision, says, how about this for a chat-up line? Hello, my name is Mike Parry. You might have heard of me from programmes like Talk Sport. I'm self-opinionated. I'm always right. I constantly talk over people, and I'm so clever. My average quiz score is 3 out of 10.
Yeah.
How do you think that'll go down?
Well, from somebody with a name as stupid as Winford, I'm not taking any notice of that.
Very harsh.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport, Porkyvision next.
Yes. As your TV reviewer, I can reveal there are no plans for a new series.
Yeah, no, but wasn't there a previous series?
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. It says here there might be a new series. What's your problem?
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics, and that music can only mean one thing. It is, of course, time for Porkyvision. As he's previously said, the award-winning television review
that's right.
that everybody wants to emulate.
Indeed.
What have you got for us this week?
Well, listen, I better kick off with Apple Tree Yard, okay? Because this gets more and more weird.
Does it?
Just to recap on the first one, she's suddenly getting knee tremblers from a stranger in the crypt of the House of Commons.
Yes.
Most unlikely, considering she's a 50-year-old, scientist.
Well, you say that, but I still don't understand why you would say that.
Specialist in genetics. Well, it's just a very unusual thing for a person to do, to meet a stranger in the House of Commons. So should we go down to the crypt and have stand-up sex?
I think it's much less unlikely than you think.
Yeah, OK, well, you say so. You know these sort of things. You have the morals of an alley cat, and I don't.
It's not about that.
Anyway, so she gets into this, right? Then she gets raped by a bloke at work because he says, oh, I can tell from your attitude and the way you're dressing, because she's wearing stockings and suspenders, which you can see when she sits down. You know what I mean?
Really?
So he says...
Why can you see her when she sits down?
Well, because her dress moves up and you can see the tops of her stockings. You see what I mean?
It's a bit racy, isn't it?
Well, this is part of the plot. That's what I'm just telling you. So... So this guy that she works with, and then he spots her on her phone smiling all the time when messages are coming in and then sending messages out, like a lovelorn person, a lovelorn teenager. So he comes to the conclusion, she's having it away with somebody. It's not her husband. So he calls her into his office to say, let's make arrangements to go home, and then punches her in the face and then rapes her.
Right.
It's horrible.
That's horrible.
Anyway, so that's the first series. The start of the second series, she doesn't want to report the rape.
Right.
And the reason being is her being a scientist, she says that if she has the internal examination you have to have when you're raped, it will also reveal the fact that she's having this stand-up sex session with the other guy.
Oh, I see, right.
So she says, I can't do it, and all that kind of stuff. So she goes and burns all her clothes. Which is the only evidence for the rape anyway.
Seems a bit mad, doesn't it?
Well, the whole thing's getting madder and madder, really. Meanwhile, her husband has gone away to a conference in somewhere like Yugoslavia or Croatia or something, because he's some sort of a scientist
but
as
did you
well.
not say he was also having an affair?
Well, he wasn't, but he comes back to reveal he has been nobberooning his...
I don't think you can say that.
Well,
I'm not sure that's allowable.
Okay, well, a bit of, let's say, horizontal refreshing, his assistant, who's 20 years younger than him.
I see.
And he reveals it for the first time. Well, she then thinks, well, in that case, it wouldn't have mattered if my affair had been revealed.
Yes.
Except her affair it's a knee trembler. It's not an affair. All they do is have stand-up sex with their clothes on in back alleys and the bathrooms of restaurants and cafes. It's very weird.
Right.
Anyway.
So we're into the second episode now, or is it the third one?
No, into the second. So then what happens is her secret lover gets very concerned that she's been raped. And, I mean, I'm not trying to be unkind and calculating here, but normally a chap like him, who's clearly taking advantage of this woman for sexual purposes only, would run a million miles when she suddenly says...
Well, that's what you would do, maybe.
Well, I know I would take my responsibility seriously.
Would you?
And you wouldn't find me anywhere near a knee-trembling situation because I find that abhorrent in terms of moral behaviour.
What about the Fromby scenario on the stairs?
The Fromby?
Yeah. You've just previously described that in one of your earlier assignations.
Oh, my Fromby?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's I'm not talking about me.
Well, that's technically a knee-trembling situation.
No, it's not. It's not knee trembler because by definition of Fromby, which for the benefit of our listeners means from behind.
You don't need to explain
so
it.
that's why it's called a Fromby.
You have no filter, do you?
Sorry?
You absolutely have no filter.
Don't even worry about it. Anyway, so what happens, Quelle horreur, is he suddenly says, this is dreadful, don't worry, I'll help your emotional... I mean, this woman's an emotional wreck because she's been dreadfully assaulted as well as raped. I mean, it's shocking, So she pretends to have flu for a week while she gets over it. And then when she's got over it, she then, finds her knee trembler lover again, says, I've been raped. And he says, this is disgraceful. But he's...
Well, hang on, you're going backwards and forwards now. So she hasn't told him at this point.
Well, she tells him, then she goes away for a week, and then she comes back.
Yeah.
And then he amazingly says, I'm going to sort the bloke out. I mean, considering he's only known her about a couple of weeks, and they've only met for, minutes at a time for a stand-up edition of sex, you know what I mean?
How does it... Well, has she told him who this guy is, then?
Yeah.
Why did she identify him?
What?
Why did she identify him?
I don't know, but she said, to a colleague at work, and he says, do you know where he lives? And she says, yeah, right, we're going round there.
Right.
So then, we already know that
how does she know where he lived then? She knew him then?
Well, they worked in the same office together.
Oh, I see.
And it was at her leaving do that she got raped in his office.
Oh, okay.
In their business, you see what I mean?
It's not easy to keep up with this.
Now, listen. So what happens then is... This guy, who's always appeared in an immaculate suit and all that kind of stuff, and she suspects is a spook, i.e., like MI6 or
This is the undercurrent of the whole show, right? That
the undercurrent of the whole show.
Involved in some dodgy dealings.
So then she says, he said, I'm going to sort him out for you. She said, that'd be nice, thanks very much. So she's advocating mass violence, okay?
Mass violence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, next... He turns up and he starts looking more like James Bond. He's got a black...
Who plays this guy, by the way?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know?
No, no idea.
Do you think it's worth checking out?
Maybe. He's quite a handsome-looking chap. He's been in a few other programmes. Anyway, so he turns up then looking like Milk Tray Man, literally. Literally like Milk Tray Man. With a
you mean he's got a box of chocolates under his arm?
No, he's got a box of chocolates under his arm.
And a black polo neck.
No. Well, he has got a black polo neck on.
Yeah.
He's got a black polo neck on.
Polo neck?
Yeah, polo neck.
Right.
With a tight jacket over it, like a,
Black?
No, I think it's green.
Right.
I think it's green.
Does he come in the window?
No, he doesn't come in the window, no. But he, and tight black trousers, right?
Right.
So they drive to the attacker's house, and they all live in these, these townhouses in North London. They're all very wealthy.
Do you remember what the guy's name is? Because we've got Yvonne Carmichael. Mark Costley, who I presume is the guy you're talking about.
Yeah, it'll be him, Mark Costley.
Because there are other people who are all called Carmichael. Gary Carmichael, Adam Carmichael, Carrie Carmichael.
Well, that's her family.
Right.
That's her family.
So the odd one out, Mark Costley, must be the one who plays Ben Chaplin.
Yeah, he's very sort of dark and brooding type figure,
He's the one that looks like the Milk Tray Man.
Yeah, Milk Tray Man, that's him, yeah. So he turns up then, literally looking like Milk Tray Man. They drive to the house of her attacker.
Yeah.
And then what you see is...
This is all set in London.
It's all set in London, North London, because most of the scenes, by the way, are taken on the embankment with the House of Commons in the background and all that kind of stuff.
You know what I mean? They're shooting it around here.
They could be. It's very close by. And then what you see is he goes up and he knocks on the bloke's door.
Yeah.
Bloke opens the door.
Yeah.
He says something to him and then goes inside.
Oh, yeah.
And
where is she outside?
She's sitting in the car outside. But then what you see is next is somebody comes and bangs on her window and rips open the door of the car.
Oh, right.
Right?
Okay. Somebody who's not come from the house.
Well, we don't know, because that's the end of episode 2.
Oh, wow. Oh, it's a bit of a cliffhanger.
But in the between time, you're still getting all these flashbacks to her being in a blinking police paddy wagon, being taken off to court, and she's going to be, charged with something, whether or not her beau, her boyfriend, has beaten this guy to death or something. We just don't know.
Yeah.
So it's
how many more episodes to go?
I think it's 2 more.
Oh, right,
or could be one more.
Because they did a lot of things in 3s lately.
They did a lot of things in 3s.
Okay. So anything else?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, for goodness sake,
Have you seen the time?
No, don't worry about that. Now, Taboo. I've worked it out.
Have you?
I worked out Taboo.
Okay.
Taboo is all about one man's battle against the East India Company.
Yeah.
And the one man is that guy who's a great actor in Peaky Blinders.
That's the man, yeah.
You keep forgetting his name, don't you? We know his name.
First name, Tom.
Tom.
Second name?
Hobrin, was it? What's his name? What's his name?
Hardy,
that's him. Yeah, Tom. I knew
Tom Hobrin.
Yeah, I knew he began with H. Tom Hardy. So Tom Hardy, I've worked this out now because I've been studying it, in great detail. And what Tom Hardy. So what are you laughing at?
Somebody just said Nobarunian.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that one on Countdown.
Well, no, all right, I must admit, I invented that word. But anyway, so what happens is, I've worked out, the big problem here is that he's got this bit of land, believe it or not, over in somewhere like Vancouver. It's over that way.
It is, yeah.
I've been to Vancouver, actually. It's a very, very nice place.
Yes.
And
there's been some great food there, actually.
Yeah, great seafood. A lot of forests, like pine forests and all that kind of stuff, yeah. But anyway, the point of the story is that the East India Company want this bit of land he's got, and they offer him derisory money for it because it's on a trade route to China.
Yes.
And although the East India Company run everything in India, they decided they have to expand, and part of the expansion is developing a route from the west coast of America by the Western Passage to China.
The Western Passage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Western Passage?
Is it the Northwest Passage?
South, East. Yeah, that's right. The Northwest Passage. That's right. Yeah. See, so
I'm not sure about which passage it is, to be honest.
No, it would be Northwest Passage.
You sure?
You've got to remember, in those days, you could walk across. No, you couldn't actually. I was going to say you could walk across the ice to Russia, but that was in fact in Stone Age times when they did that. So,
well, they hadn't really discovered any trade routes.
No, they hadn't. But I mean, they're very close to Alaska and
there's an ice bridge
and the Bering Straits. Yeah,
Alaska. There's an ice bridge which is available at certain times of the year, I think.
It's true. Alaska and the Bering Straits are very close to each other.
Well, Sarah Palin famously used to say that she could see Russia from Alaska, didn't she?
Exactly, that's right, yeah, exactly. Now, what I'm saying is that he says, no, you're not getting it, and he wants a lot of money for it from the East India Company. And when the East India Company get turned down, they get nasty. Because, you see, I always thought that, what's his name? Jonathan Pryce, is it?
Jonathan Pryce, yeah.
Is he the actor?
He's the guy that plays the head of the East India Company.
Well, he plays the head of the East India Company.
Very foul-mouthed as well.
Very foul-mouthed indeed. But in the first couple of episodes, I thought that he was actually the King of England, because the way he's treated by his lackeys, his underlings, is like he is a king. But in fact, we then find out that and I've done some research on this, because I do research when I do the Porky review.
I can see that, yeah.
Is that the East India Company is actually a bigger enterprise than any government in the world, except for the British government.
Yeah.
It's got an army of like 80,000 people. It's got 300 ships.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally runs the world.
Literally.
On the trading basis.
Yeah.
And that's how the British Empire was created.
Yeah.
So if you cross the East India Company, which has got offices in London, literally the size of sort of, the Pentagon and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right. You see the time.
Don't worry about the time. This is important.
Right.
If you cross them, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So old, what's his name?
Tom Bison.
Tom Harding. Tom Harding. Right.
Tom Harding.
What's his name again?
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. That's him. Yeah, Tom Hardy.
That's Laurel and Hardy.
No.
Pair of clowns.
No, Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy.
What he does is he's walking along an alleyway when suddenly some bloke comes up and says, "Right, you take that," boom, and stabs him in the stomach. Tom Hardy is what's the problem here?
I was calling this a bit of a spoiler alert.
Oh,
what
I
about
see.
that scene where there was a woman performing a sex act?
Yes,
as
she
used
was.
to say in the tabloid.
Well, she was being frombeat actually at the time of the.
No, I wasn't talking about that bit. I was talking about the other bit.
The other bit
where she was performing a sex act on him.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You didn't see that bit?
I didn't see that.
Okay.
No. Anyway, let me just tell you here.
Can you get on with it?
Well, what happens is, he gets stabbed up, but he's so hard that he staggers off. What's the problem?
Nothing.
No, I mean hard like in tough guy. You know?
Go on.
He staggers off to a mad scientist and says,
scientist?
Yeah, can you take this knife out and sew up the wound?
Yes.
So the mad scientist
Wasn't a mad scientist, was he?
Yeah, he was. He was like a chemist.
Was he a surgeon or something?
He's
was he not in the morgue,
sort of chemist-surgeon type person, you know what I mean?
Chemist surgeon.
Yeah, and what he does is he takes a knife out and then he says, right, now you better give me some of your wealth or I'll only sew up half of your wounds, And old Tom says, sew it up, So he gets it sewn up. And then he obviously, naturally, then he threatens great revenge on the East India Company.
Yeah.
But they've got a lot more people than him. They're a big enterprise, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah, it will be, yeah.
Yeah, it will, yeah. And by the way, Tina and Bobby, they split up. And Bobby just went off, and she went off to Miami, and it lost all its. I thought it lost all its oomph in the third episode. I really do.
Yeah.
It just petered out. Bobby got turned over on some investment in a nightclub. He lost all his money. She got fed up with it. He started horizontal refreshment courses with a lady in Hong Kong when he was out there coaching football.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, I've had enough of this, and off she went. So I'm afraid it petered out to a lowly flame.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
That was Porkyvision.
That was.
More of the same coming next week.
Yes.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Today you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I like the rain. So before we go do it all again, you better catch your own train.
Now, just before we forget, I know we don't do that many of these anymore, but we do them when we can.
Yes.
I've got this tweet from Connor, who says, hi, Mike, it's my son Connor's birthday. But I think he calls himself Connor because he calls himself after his kids.
Right.
But it's his son Connor's birthday on Friday the 3rd. He will be 9.
Yeah.
And it would mean a lot to him if you guys could wish him a happy birthday.
Absolutely.
And he sent another one later on to say he listens to the podcast in the car on his way to school.
Right.
And he said he's quite happy to offer you a tenner if you can wish him a happy birthday.
This
is young Connor, by the way, not his dad.
No, honestly, wouldn't dream of that. No, Connor, I hope you have a very happy birthday, my boy. You're 9, so it means at your next birthday, when you are 10, you will have a birthday with 2 numbers in your age for the first time.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, that'd be good.
That's really growing up. It certainly is.
And also, we should mention, because we have been doing this, and lots of people have been very kind, we'll retweet again
We will.
Leo the Lion,
We will.
as we call him, who's trying to raise enough money to go over to the United States and get an operation on his brain.
We will.
Which will save his life if if it can be done.
Yes.
The proton therapy. And we will we'll retweet that out. But thanks to an awful lot of people who've already donated to his GoFundMe page. Yeah. And we'll be mentioning that again on the show tomorrow.
Really, really kind responses.
Yes,
to that.
people
Thank
have
you
been
very
tremendous.
Much,
They've been very,
well,
very
it
generous.
It does prove in situations like this the milk of human kindness has not run out. There is still plenty of compassion out there, and so a lot of good people around. So thank you very much indeed for all of that.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, a few more tweets and things.
Yep.
Jay says this, Porkyvision, 10 minutes of my life I'll never get back.
Why? Why would you want it back? Well, says, you want to listen to it again? Yeah,
Ian
sure.
says, I've never heard so much unadulterated tripe in all my life. What is Porky droning on about?
No.
They're calling it a new low.
No. You've got to follow it. You know.
David says, I've lost track. Is the government scientist being Rogerised by the East India Company or the mad scientist?
Well, you know,
he's not sure.
It's a complicated plot, and you know you've got to pay attention, otherwise you are going to have a problem.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
What I'm going to say to you is this: do you think that you used to see these guys walking around with the boards? The end of the world is nigh.
Oh yeah, on Oxford Street.
Well, did your dad ever take you to Hyde Park Corner when they used to walk?
Yeah, we did. In fact, we used to go to Hyde Park Corner on a regular basis on a Sunday afternoon because it was very entertaining.
I was going to say, I bet he took you there.
He used to like heckling them.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I bet your father took me there to show you what democracy was all about. People standing on soapboxes, advocating anything they wanted in a free society, and then other people throwing fruit at them and shouting at them.
Do you know what he used to do, in fact? And it's funny, I'd never really thought of this for years until you've just reminded me.
Yeah.
But we used to go there, and we would stand at various points, and he would sort of, I suppose, decide which guy he liked the look of the most.
Yeah. What, you mean the speaker?
The speakers, yeah. And we would stand
Sorry,
there.
was there more than one speaker at once?
Oh, yeah. There would. I mean, Speaker's Corner was usually full.
Oh, I thought one guy at a time had to go up on the old podium.
No. I mean, it was a bit like the best way. It's a bit like all the Tic Tac men at race course.
Yeah, I understand.
But they're about 10 metres apart.
Sure.
And some are talking in a slightly louder voice than others.
Yeah.
And my dad would have me sometimes on his shoulders.
Yes.
And he would wait for the guy to pause, and he would just go rubbish. And the guys inevitably would go nuts and start shouting at him.
Yeah.
And then they'd have this row.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. It was a great way for me to kind of get to know the idea of having an argument.
And some of the guys would be holding a Bible.
Yes.
And, the Lord's wrath and all that kind of stuff.
Some of it was about the Lord. Some of it was, there was quite a few communists, I remember.
Yeah, that's right.
Talking about
the government being corrupt and all that kind of stuff.
About how we needed to change the system and sort of Russian Revolution style and all that. It was fascinating, actually.
But the reason I ask is that amongst my research papers, I've actually found that, this is a statement of the obvious, but all the predictions about the end of the world is nigh have never actually come to fruition.
They haven't. I mean, it's one of those that will eventually come true, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
Because eventually the world will end.
Yeah, but there are some very famous ones who thought they got there. For instance, American evangelist Harold Camping publicly predicted the end of the world 12 times.
He's the guy that made everybody go up the mountain,
This is exactly
I'm sure we talked about him a few years ago.
12 times, right, based on his interpretations of biblical numerology.
That's it.
But on every occasion, people literally packed up all their belongings, went up this mountain to this hut they'd built.
But did they not also give him all of their worldly sort of possessions in terms of the money they had?
Yeah, all of that,
so
because they wouldn't need it.
He did rather well out of it.
That's right. His latest prediction...
is he still alive, then?
Well, I'm just getting to that. His latest prediction in 1994, he foresaw Armageddon on May the 21st... 2011,
right?
A date he calculated to be exactly 7,000 years after the biblical flood. An attempt to collate these predictions concluded that it was going to happen then, but it never did.
Yes.
But once again, people gave all their worldly possessions to him in the days before what was going to be the end of the world.
Right.
How do these people get away with it?
Well, the trouble is, I can't remember who famously said it, but you can't underestimate the sort of idiocy, really, of the people in the world out there. Some of them are truly idiotic, and they want to believe. And a lot of people actually want to be told how to live their lives.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's from a religious organisation or from one of these kind of guys who's promising them something. I think they like the responsibility of life taken away from them so that they can be told exactly what to do, exactly how to live, and the fact that they get conned every time is tantamount to that, isn't it?
In 1806, a domesticated hen in Leeds appeared to lay eggs with the inscription, "Christ is coming," written on them.
It's like the sort of chapati that has the vision of Jesus' face inside it, right?
It caused mass panic and an evacuation of the city of Leeds.
Leeds?
Yeah.
So Leeds believed that... When was this?
In 1806.
Oh, 1806. Well, I suppose that was a different time
ago. Right,
They're
now
a bit
then.
more superstitious in those days, weren't they?
A bit more superstitious. Now then, what I need to talk to you about is...
Well, there's not a lot of time, you know.
No, not
like
a lot
a couple of minutes left. Show nearly over.
Show nearly over. But in fact, I said to you that I'm planning to go off for a few days to this wedding in the summer. But in fact, you have travel plans before that, don't you?
Yeah, I've got to go to see my mother in New York, so I'm going to head over there in March, I think.
In March?
Next month,
okay.
yes.
Now, what would you expect me to do while you're away gallivanting?
Well, I mean, I'm sure you can find yourself something to do, can't you?
But, you know, my...
I mean, you're constantly working. I'm sure you can... Well, you go work for your mate Jeremy Vine. He's in the papers again today, by the way.
Well, the woman who was rather unpleasant to him...
Yeah.
Could now face jail.
She's going to go to jail.
Which could do.
Isn't that a bit over the top?
Well, I think
this isn't a road rage incident.
Well, you know, it's one of those incidents, isn't it? She probably won't, I wouldn't think. But
should he not make a plea on her behalf?
Well, I don't think it works like that. I don't think you can make a plea for that. The point is that, and this is on public record because the case is now finished, and it's just sentencing. I think she has a suspended sentence situation.
What you mean? She's already got one from another episode.
I think so.
Oh, I see.
And I think.
Oh, well, that's not helpful.
I think
is
that's
it?
one reason.
Well, in
why,
that case, then you got to lock her up because you can't encourage that sort of behaviour.
Well, that's absolutely right.
But to get back to your earlier question,
yes.
I mean, I'm sure you'll find something to amuse yourself with.
Yes, but you see,
you did live for many years before we did this show together. And you were able to sort of fend for yourself.
No, but my work ethic is that you have to work for your daily bread.
Yes, I know that.
And okay, so I did it for many years before we actually started working together. But of course, I've thrown off the shackles of all that independent work that I used to do in order to help you, develop things.
That's not true.
You see,
as soon as you get asked to go on another radio station, you do it.
Well, sometimes I do.
You don't ask me if that's all right. You don't ask me if I'd like to do it with you. You don't insist on the two mics doing it together.
Well, I don't like to remind you
when they ask you to do Clash of the Titans, you jump at the chance.
I don't like to remind you that I'm in demand. You know, these sort of things happen.
So why would I worry about what happens to you when I'm away then?
Well, you know,
I'll bring you another fridge magnet if you like.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, it cost another sort of 40 cents or something. Yeah.
That last one I brought in from Mexico was highly, highly rare and very expensive.
Yes. Yeah,
so I mean, I'm sorry to say that my mother, who will be 93 this year,
wow, that's a fantastic age,
deserves some of my time as well.
Well, I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that.
I'm certainly not going to be dragging your carcass around with me over there, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I'm not asking that, but you did indicate that you were going to spend a day in New York on the way back.
Well, with my sister, who also deserves some of my time.
I see. Because I was going to say, I'll drop in and...
No, don't drop in.
We'll have a few sherbets in...
I don't think that's a good idea.
On Fifth Avenue or something.
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
No, well, I'm going to do it anyway.
You're not going to do it?
Yeah, no intention to do it.
I don't think my sister would be particularly happy to see you. It cause all sorts of flashbacks.
Right, you're joking.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't be happy to see her either.
Really? Oh, I'll tell her that.
No.
I'll tell her that. That's
from
charming.
the point of view that, you know,
charming.
We don't want to be rocking the boat in each other's lives, do we?
No. We've got to go. This is Talk Sport.
Look at the light!
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.
Oh, well, I've said before, and I mean it now, if I want to get up at 8 o'clock, I bang my head on the pillow 8 times, and I get up at 8 o'clock.
Do you?
Yes, it's happened to me for years.
Yeah.
So I never get up at 8 o'clock. It's when I get up at 4:30 I have a problem, because I don't know whether to bang my head 4 times or 5 times.
Yeah, well, about 4.5 times.
I do, that's what I do. I bang it 4.5 times.
You're completely bonkers.
No.
You know that?
No, I've been doing it for years.
Yeah, well, that would explain it. We should try that with you, Porky.
No, I never answer the phone to strangers.
I'll give you a number out.
If I don't recognise a number on the phone, it doesn't get answered. Simple as that. It's a bum.
Yeah.
If you love the Two Mics podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1 a.m. on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
Talk Sport.
Duel.
Duel.
You pronounce it as though it's a jewel in the crown.
No, jewel.
Jewel. No, it's duel.
Well, it sounds the same.
D-U-A-L. Duel.
Duel. It's
Duel.
It's pronounced jewel.
No, it's not.